Welcome to Moonbase 2.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Moonbase 2. Andy's dead. I killed him, and I'm not sorry. So yeah, there wasn't a huge amount of news this week, and given the timing of everything, I thought it would be really good if we did our show on the Transformers War for Cybertron Siege Chapter 1 Netflix series and Netflix anime by Polygon Pictures. Did a bit of a discussion on it. I decided to get in a couple of guests in for this. Possibly preempting a discussion on his own podcast, we have Mr. Chris Vangelus.
Oh, you think you have Chris Vangelus? I am the ghost of Andy.
Andy, your accent sounds different.
It does. That's what happens when you transubstantiate ectoplasm.
Oh, right. It affects the vocal cords, I take it.
Yes.
What's it like over there?
Yeah, I gotta... Excuse me. I was doing a bit contractually obligated. Hello. I'm here to talk about the Netflix cartoon.
And post-empting, probably like the 20th show he's done on this, we have Jeremy from Transmissions.
Yeah, hello. This is actually kind of going to be prep for when we record the episodes 3 through 6 spoiler review tomorrow.
Yeah, I was thinking, after I invited you on, I did sort of sit down and think, like, how many times is he talking about this show?
So I've had some discussions on spoiler channels on Discords. So this is step 2 of my warm up for our recording. That was almost going to happen yesterday, actually, but we bumped it. I'll just say it. I'll make this up just for you. We bumped it, actually.
That is a tissue of fucking lies.
We bumped it just for. I was like, hang on, I can warm up on Mikey's show first and steal all of their talking points. So give me a sec.
Hang on, you did that when we did Prime Wars.
I've got a little thing of a notepad here, and I'm just gonna get my pencil out, and then I'm good to go.
Good.
Were there any points worth talking about in Prime Wars? Really?
I have lengthy rants about how mad I am that I could have. If they paid me less, I think, than whoever did it, I could have done better audio post-production, and I'm still really mad about that.
Bink.
The bink is fine. It's more boring things. Like
like
frame rate.
Megatron running up a step or something set you off. I remember that.
Just on an audio level, it's bink relevant in that when there was the bink, it's the same bink, or whenever anyone's walking, it's the exact same footstep noise over and over again, and it's like at least pitch shift it slightly so that it's like natural. Anyway, I won't get it. You know what? I yelled about that somewhere at some point, and people don't need to hear me yell about that.
Multiple times. Those shows are available on the Moonbase 2 and WTF if you want to check them out. But yes, we're going to talk about the show. Warnings here. We are going to do a little bit of a pretty brief non-spoiler impressions for summary, and then we're going to deep dive into this because the show's out. A lot of you will already have seen it, and if you haven't seen it and you started listening to this, just listen to a couple of minutes and head away, watch it. It's a movie. It won't take you too long.
Yeah, this is not a spoiler, but up until I finished the first episode, it was actually quite unclear to me whether or not that like Friday or Thursday was episode 1 comes out or the whole series comes out. Like I got mixed messages everywhere, so I was actually on the edge of my seat waiting to see if the next episode button was going to pop up because I really wasn't sure.
But yeah, so. Like I said, we're going to open with impressions. So, Jeremy, your overall impressions, spoiler-free on the show.
I enjoyed it. I mean, there's definitely, flaws here and there, but, on the whole, I had fun watching it, and it's something that I will definitely rewatch. So, I think that's a good sign for a show.
Yeah. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I at the end of it, I was like, yeah, that was neat. It exceeded my expectations. Hey, Mikey, ask me what my expectations were.
And I nearly called you Andy there. You got in my head. Chris, what were your expectations?
Low! So it exceeded those. And I enjoyed myself for the most part. I would say it definitely is critiquable. In fact, I could see it bouncing off someone hard. But in the pantheon of Transformers screen medias, I would say it rests, not as a dig, it rests quite solidly in that kind of Galaxy Force mid-tier. There's worse Transformers shows. There are better Transformers shows, and this is very much my 2000s mind still existing. But like, I'm just happy if like Transformers are watchable. So this is definitely, I would like, you know, it sounds like a dig, but like I would say it actually is very much in the exact same tier as Galaxy Force for me. It is not like Galaxy Force. It does not have the same qualities, but if I make all my plus and minuses go together in a row, the math puts it round about where I would put Galaxy Force.
For me, and I've been thinking about this for a few days, as the Twitter has probably shown, I would describe it as flawed but functional. It's nothing special in terms of animation, and it's nothing special in terms of a Transformers show, but it's enjoyable for what it is. It has plenty of good points to balance off plenty of bad points. It has a lot of potential to build on, and I'm hoping that if we're going into a full Rooster Teeth era rather than what I really feel is Machinima moved over,
it is.
that this show will develop a bit more of its own identity.
And let's also throw in, like, someone pointed this out to me, it is also Polygon, like, doing more work than last time.
I have so much to talk about on that. Polygon and I have had an abusive relationship since about 2014.
It's Polygon doing an amount of work that is paid for, and this is far more than whatever may have been done on the Prime Wars show. This is
far more.
They have more than one computer rendering it.
More than one computer rendering. The computer has something beyond Windows 2007.
This is still non-spoilers. I was horrified watching more than two people on my timeline leading up to the launch of this series say, I'm going to rewatch the Prime Wars trilogy to get myself ready. And I was like, but why? And I can say quite definitively, I would actually say, and I'm someone who doesn't say this very often, I'm going to use the word objectively. Objectively, this series is on another dimension from Prime Wars on a production level. This is not the Vine memeable, like, student film as a dig that the Prime Wars trilogy ended up being. And I'll always throw in there, it is not a dig on everyone involved in it. It's a dig on the final product. There was very good stuff being used badly in the Prime Wars trilogy. This is not that, and I think that it's really worth getting, because there's a lot of like nebulous talk about it still floating around, and I just want to throw it out. This is not the Machinima trilogy.
Yeah, and like on the Machinima trilogy, we had an interview with FJ DeSanto, who, like, he's getting a lot of flack for being associated with that, but he wasn't the original showrunner of that. Whereas this is like the combiner, or the War for Cybertron is completely him being the showrunner. He came in like midway through the second show on the Machinima, and basically was like replacing the previous showrunner that set everything up. So, you know, you saw how like the Power of the Primes compared to Combiner Wars, Power of the Primes was much better. That was like just trying to like polish the turd as much as it could be polished.
Also the Machinima thing, like all the names associated with it, I remember even when it was airing, it was like, wait, this list of names has grown to like, it's jumped from 2 or 3 to like 6 to 12, and I think there is definitely still a bit of a many cooks in the kitchen aspect to this new show, but it is not like actually confusing to figure out who remotely did what on this Netflix show. Like,
I whether it was moving to Netflix or Rooster Teeth, I think it was a very positive thing for this series.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of our spoiler-free impressions, guys. Definitely leaning towards the positive, I'd say, overall. And we're granted it also turned into We Hate the Machinima show, but it was the worst Transformers show ever made and one of the worst TV shows I've ever seen.
It's really important to lay out, I think. It's like sadly, this Netflix show it's seen as the sibling to the Machinima series.
Yes, which is something I want to talk about, actually. But no,
if it is, it might be, but like it's not in the bad way.
Like I said, you can see the DNA in that a lot of the production crew from the Machinima series were involved in this, which really says to me, and I've never looked into the background, that this show was in development before Machinima crashed and contracts were signed, blah blah blah. This is not a Machinima show.
I saw
on
it
any
floating
level.
around that this one might have been that this might have been in the works for like 2 years plus.
Yeah, it was about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, guys, that was spoiler free. We're going to get into spoiler talk. If you
Spoiler
want to...
zone is ahead.
Oh God, he's back.
Spoilers are coming.
And he's a Wookiee. Right. So make up your mind whether or not you want to stick around, guys. So, opening up the basic overview of the show. Last days of the Cybertronian War, Megatron is getting desperate, Optimus is getting desperate. Shockwave presents the idea of using the Allspark to reprogram the Autobots. The Autobots try to get to the Allspark first, and Optimus makes the fateful decision of throwing it through a space bridge despite Megatron trying to stop him, because it will doom the planet. He tries to follow on the Ark. It seems to blow up. A group of Autobots are left on Cybertron, and we end on the Ark about to meet up with a second ship, while everyone seems to be out cold. That's a very brief overview. Chris, sort of, what do you want to talk about this show?
Well, I have so this is sort of the mid podcast swerve at the 5-10 minute mark. I actually have a few more problems with the show than I have pros. But I was not lying when I said I did rather enjoy myself. But I also wasn't lying when I said I think it is critiquable. So it's really like, do you want me to get into? I'm going to give you the choice. Do I get into something I liked or something I didn't like?
I think you know me well enough to know I'll be fairly critical even if I love it. So start with something positive, because no one wants to listen to me bitch for ages.
I'm going to start actually at the top of the mountain for me. My absolute favorite part of the whole show. There was a whole lot of episode 5 that I really liked, because suddenly I felt like we were getting some world building that was creeping up on the carpet of good IDW world building. And this is in the span of a 17-minute episode, so bear in mind it's not massively world shattering. But when Bumblebee dropped the name of his contact as Sound Blaster, I was like, excuse me? And then when they took the Dreamwave idea and made it better of, Sound Blaster, he is straight up a failed clone who's a little bit off kilter and not really happy about being a failed clone. That was stage 2 of me saying, you've really got me interested here. And then Sound Blaster, portrayed by voice actor. A lot of the names are new to me, so I actually don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't have a list.
Raphael Goldstein.
Raphael Goldstein, who was also Ratchet. I really liked his Ratchet performance.
Yes.
And I want to say I liked it a lot, and for context, I have a lot of critiques of the vocal direction of the show, and I think that was one of the actors who escaped out from underneath the vocal direction. I think his Ratchet was very strong for that character. I think his Sound Blaster was excellent in a very subtle way, which is, I like it when someone who has that background, whose character type is like dangerously unhinged. I like it a lot when the voice delivery is incredibly calm. And I really enjoyed that Sound Blaster was very calm all the time. No matter what was happening, whether or not he was personally shooting a reflector trying to break into his office, or just going like, hey, we're gonna kill you because you're trying to steal my stuff. Y'all thought you think only Soundwave got a bird? Mine's better. Mine's gold.
Mine killed Omega Supreme once.
Yeah. So Sound Blaster I thought was a very enjoyable concept. I actually really liked the sort of retcon of getting the Merc symbol on him, so that my Merc symbol that I'm still attached to popped up in this series, and you know, of course, he is also only in about a third of an episode twice max, so there's not much Sound Blaster. But I hope that if the series continues and has more stuff on Cybertron and Earthrise, which I have a theory that they will, because I don't think that this production has the budget for humans.
Yeah,
the Mercs, I think the Mercs are going to be showing up more.
Yeah. I suspect we could see some more Sound Blaster, and I hope we do in a fun way, because Sound Blaster did bring something that I was missing from a lot of the show, which is not like loud cartooniness, but like loud character work. When I say loud, I mean like that I don't have to really look too hard, like it's hitting me in the face. And Sound Blaster was the big highlight of the show for me. I was really happy about that stuff.
And Caught me off guard.
Yeah,
Caught me
and
complete. I have to admit, when they said clone, I started there were bits in the show, and it's not in a mean way, but I did start laughing because they said something like, he's a clone. I just like, why are we bringing it up for him?
Yeah. But I also think this is the first like media backed fiction where Sound Blaster is both a separate character and also like actually vaguely fleshed out.
He hasn't appeared in anything of note. God, ever.
I had just had like a Twitter convo with our mutual friend Jen about Sound Blaster. I think she'd mentioned it, and I was like, yeah, the weird thing about Sound Blaster, the most characterization he has is in the TCG, where he is his character title implies he's an arms dealer, which very much implies he's not Soundwave. But that's it. So when they mentioned all that stuff in here, I was like, holy crap, this must be the same like bullet point notes the TCG folks used to come up with like what Sound Blaster is in that game. So I was very excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, Daryl, when we were talking with FJ DeSanto, Daryl actually brought up the Merc stuff from the TCG and caught him completely off guard. And he obviously couldn't tell us anything, but we were looking for a Merc character at some point when we were watching it.
I would like, given that Wheeljack was a modeled character, if I knew any of that going in, I would have just been sitting there going like, so where's Exhaust?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I think that's what we were expecting.
Yeah. It's a bummer because now I really want Siege Sound Blaster, and I never saw one in person over here. And B, I need a Merc sticker to put on his chest. So that's going to be a long wait for me, I think. But yeah, that was my personal favorite moment from this whole thing.
Jeremy, what would you say was your favorite moment?
I think Alita won throughout the whole series. I think she was probably one of the most well-developed and strongest characters throughout. And she was the voice of reason, even though Optimus never listened to that reason. She clearly knew what was best to do. And I'm looking forward to seeing where her character develops, on the Cybertron part of Earthrise. Because I just feel like, we got so little of Alita 1 in the G1 cartoon. And in the IDW comics, she's a completely different character. It's just same name, same colors, but completely different character.
Yeah.
And this is more of the G1 kind of bones, but just completely fleshed out and such a well-developed character.
No, Alita's interesting. I've got a little bit of a thing to talk about her later on, but I think that she's got a really good core character concept, and I really like the performance.
She also got probably the nicest looking character model in the show.
Yeah,
because it wasn't based on a toy.
Yeah,
no,
it wasn't based on a toy. Yet I also kind of appreciated her backpack bits were like, oh, those are on double ball joints.
Yeah. There was a design I really liked, and I think the Earthrise one is a nice approximation of her design. It's just missing a few elements. I think I wish they'd done a bit more remolding. Yeah. But yeah, since end the positive trinity, I suppose. For me, the big positive takeaway was Megatron. Everything about him kind of worked for me. I thought the approach to humanizing him, instead of having him do the vocal doubting, of him having moments of introspection or moments where it's clear that there's a little bit of a decision being made in his head. I don't think he started in the series in a somewhat lighter place than where he ended up. I think he simply was forced to make decisions that openly showed the darkness he was already sitting in. And I think Jason Marnocha, I would like to see in everything ever. I think he has a really strong take on the character.
I
think there's voice direction stuff to talk about, but I think his approach to Megatron, whether it's Sassy Megatron or this more traditional Megatron, I think the guy has a real nail on him.
I think it's very telling that he was allowed to be his Megatron 101% in this show. And
again, without a classic thing, like he has the least vocal effects of pretty much anyone in the show.
Yeah, I think it's a good decision to do this, but it's very telling that like Jason Marnocha's Megatron is absolutely Jason Marnocha's Megatron, which could lead me to one of my biggest critiques that I could throw in too. But I'm really happy that he and Frank Totoro got to be two of the strongest voices as well in a show that was produced to a caliber that warrants their vocal talent as opposed to the Machinima trilogy. That was the biggest tragedy of the Machinima series for me, was that those two vocal performances were trapped in that carnival, and now they're in something that is like we said at the top, right? That is like watchable. I know there are fans of the Machinima series, and there are bits of it that I could see working for folks completely, and it's just on a production level. As someone who has poked around in production stuff, like there's a lot that bugs me about it, and I thought it was really sad that like such a memed up Vine series was where two very strong performances were kind of just buried, and I'm really happy that they're on this platform now, getting the recognition that I hope they get and that they deserve. Those two have gone through fire in that Machinima series, and they were very strong in this.
I think Frank, especially, I think his performance is better than in the Machinima series, to be completely
100%.
honest.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I think that just shows the guy's talent, because I used to listen to him when he was doing the fan dubs, and he had a great range. He had a great range in him. So it's just really, really good to hear him in an official thing like this. But since we're talking about voices, I think this is a good way to start the actual sort of analysis side of things. The voices especially have been getting a lot of attention, both in reviews and in the fandom. Reviews from the non-Transformers fandom, which I will say are largely positive, like currently sitting at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Obviously, if you understand how Rotten Tomatoes work, that's not as significant as you might think, but they are largely like there's a definite sense of nostalgia to the thing, but the first criticism I hear is it's not Peter Cullen, it's not Frank Welker. Obviously, that is something that's going on a lot in the fandom as well. I think the voice cast is pretty strong. It's not perfect, but like I think Optimus is well cast. I think Jake got to do a character I wish he was doing in Cyberverse. As much as I love that show, like I wish he had the freedom to emote as much as he did in this series. Alita was good. Ratchet was excellent. Hound caught me off guard.
Wheeljack was great.
Yes, Wheeljack really spot on. I thought Bumblebee's performance was also really good. A lot of Decepticons are real solid. The only problem I have with Decepticons is some vocal effects and vocal direction. But I think the cast is good. But I think the voice director made some bad choices. The one that stands out to me is that all the Decepticons kind of talk like they've burned their throats.
Yeah, I have kind of a spiraling little thread about the voice work. Also, having read some of the critiques and stuff, like point number one, I really got to throw out there. The problem is not like there is a problem about the lack of Cullen and Welker in this, but it is not the lack of their presence, like full stop.
It's why we've all seen the news stories.
Yeah, the only bummer is that it is they're not there in part because there is an attempt to skirt around paying for the fees that they incur and for the entirety of working on a union production, etc. Which is a completely valid thing to talk about. It bums me out because I feel like it is money people who are putting a lot of these actors into the spotlight to make it out that there is like these are the ones who are fighting. It's the actors taking work from each other, and it's like no, it's you who is trying to not spend all the money on union productions that is causing this to happen. And the thing is, I think it then becomes a dig on the actors for not being union, which as someone who is a freelancer I find kind of abhorrent. I know you want the union to be there to protect the actors. I hate that it is also being used as a statement of quality, because I feel that is one of my problems with the state of some of the media union stuff I have been exposed to. But that's neither here nor there. Like the performances are fine. Also, this is the thing I think is telling, right? This Megatron, Jason Marnocha is not doing a Frank Welker Megatron at all.
Nope.
And I think it's for the better. I think it's one of the biggest upfront problems I have that bounces off of that is why are you making Jake Foshi still do the Vian Optimus Prime impression? He managed to turn it into something through the entirety of Cyberverse. And
he did what Peter Cullen hadn't been able to do for years, to be completely blunt. Well, he made that archetype work. Somehow.
Because he's very young, like he's still got a lot of energy and creativity behind him.
22, 23?
Yeah.
That was one of my biggest issues too. I mean, I'm fine with the overall voice type of Optimus Prime that we expect, but make it a younger sounding voice. Like, if you rewatch the beginning of G1, it's a very young sounding Optimus versus what we're getting, from Peter Cullen and Transformers Prime and the movies. So you're restarting everything. You have a different sounding Megatron. Go with something different. And
it really kind of gets my goat that they were like, no, Jason Marnoka, just do what you want. And then it's like, all right, Jake, sit down, all right, and don't move, all right. Now do the lines. It's like it was really annoying to me because it's a mixed message. There's no reason. I mean, it's also it is a voice he can do, obviously, and he's not like a bad actor. I really hate that Jake Foshi's acting ability, I find, gets conflated with the direction he's given a lot.
No, I think if this proves anything, it's the guy's got talent in the acting stakes, because I think he delivered some of the heavier lines or the more human lines very well.
Yeah, and also I think most of the time he delivered a line really well is when he sounded the least like Peter Cullen.
Yeah, like where what was it? You're about to ask me this. Am I that obvious? That was a great line. I love that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just let him go. Take the chains off of him. If you're gonna let Jason Marnoka do his thing, and it clearly you, the folks working on the voice direction side of this, know that it's good. We all say it's good, and you're letting him do it, right? So like why not let someone go a little bit unchained with Optimus as well? It's so frustrating because on the whole, like in this show, the voices, when they were good, they were real good. And when they were weak, they were because the folks who it felt like were able to kind of work around the voice direction, for lack of a better way to put it, they came off so well, that being Megatron, Starscream, and Wheeljack as the three biggest ones for me. The Ratchet I liked as a voice, but like coincidentally, Ratchet's voice direction felt like what everyone else was kind of trapped under. Gary Chalk on Facebook had put up a post that I think has been making the rounds as well, and it really does explain it well. Everybody else, it felt like, was told sound like I'm adding a bit to this. To me, it felt like everyone was told sound tired and tough and speak slow, and it like through the whole show, it felt to me like part of the voice direction was this very I'm trying to think of a better word for it. Like the first word coming to my head is very adolescent kind of direction of like, because it's heavy, speak slow, bite onto every consonant.
Yeah, well, and like in the Decepticon base, there were some scenes where it's like everyone's whispering, and I'm like, it gets really old.
Yeah, and all due respect, Shockwave's voice actor did a good acting job with the direction he was given, I think. And
I like the core concept of that voice.
I'm assuming a lot about the direction, but like I feel the evidence is there to make this an educated assumption. So I
can tell you it's the same voice director who worked on Prime Wars.
Oh, well, that explains.
Philip Bosch, I think his name is. He also played Skytread.
Okay. Yeah, every time Shockwave did a line, after about 3 of them, I sat there and I was like, just even chewing it on my head, just going like, what if he sounded like... I don't know how to put this better. It did not sound like I was like I was listening to a character performance. It sounded like I was listening to a person being given voice direction. Like there's a very fine line for that for me. A lot of Shockwave's lines I think would have been more effective and also scarier if the voice was like less directed to be evil, I guess.
It's that growl, like I said, it's this weird growl that everyone, even the good guys on the Decepticon side, have. I thought
it was really unintentionally funny that as Impactor became good, his voice became less throaty.
Yeah. Jetfire doesn't get that, though. Jetfire's still kind of like,
Yeah, Yeah,
game.
And it also messed a lot with like, some of the plot points too, where they tried to have this presentation of there being a gradient of allegiance with Impactor and Jetfire, and it was harder for me to take seriously for a bit because they like Jetfire shows up, it's like yes, let's go kill some people, and Impactor's like exterminate all of them, and then it's a lot harder for me to take that as like I just wanted to uprise against a fascist government. And it's like, okay, but you also were literally talking like a cartoon supervillain down to the voice performance. And
Enunciate.
It was a bummer. It stuck out to me by episode 2. And and I knew that a lot of the criticism would then wing back around on the actors. And I'm not saying that like, the actors are 100% innocent, but a lot of actors, and I feel it's not mistaken to say that in a non-union situation, a lot of actors are just going to do the lines as they're directed, full stop.
Well, yeah. That's, like, even in like, unless they're explicitly given a bit of freedom, even union voice actors will be, they will defer to what the director is saying, because they have to. It's their job. Like, I don't like to do this, but, like, Peter Cullen, I know the man can act very well. He's very talented. And it has not been coming across in the performance for a good long while. And that's because they keep telling him to act in this particular way.
Yeah,
right.
and
like I've always said, give Peter Cullen the freedom to act like I think he would like to.
Right. I mean,
and that character would, like, it would be amazing.
And how much of that is like he's acting because it's a paycheck at this point?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
He's like, this is not how Optimus Prime would act, but you're giving me this bucket of money.
Look at him in the movies. Like, he was... Even a man as professional as him, by the last movie, is pretty honest about the fact he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, and it's just some lines, like, I hate to keep going back on Shockwave, because, like I said, it's not like the actor I don't think the actor did a bad job, but, like,
no,
Shockwave would have... he'd have a line where he's like, I've got this virus that I've been keeping in storage. And I'm like, it would actually have been scarier, I think, and a lot more effective if that had been delivered, like, calmly. Like,
well, I have to admit, I kept on, like, dipping in David Sobolov, his performance, because I love his approach.
He's a good Shockwave too.
But his like that just deadpan, I've got it.
Well, because this was like we've used the word, because this is kind of rebooting an idea.
Yeah.
Like let's just like sit back on Shockwave. Just let him actually sound like a reasonable scientist who says horrible things. Like, to me, that would be a really cool take on Shockwave that fits the mold of this show. Let him say the exact same lines, but, like, as though it is completely normal. Like, oh, yes, I've got a virus in storage that can wipe out the entire Autobot race's sub-programming network or whatever. Like, just sort of say it offhand like it's normal,
Let the idea be the scary part, not the voice.
Yeah, it's such a shame, because, like, I kind of don't think the voice direction is really gonna get better fast, if that makes any sense with Earthrise. Like, I'm kind of... That, to me, is the bar now that I'm kind of expecting, and...
I don't know. We know some of the staff isn't continuing on.
Yeah, Brandon Easton said that he's not, which is... I actually wish he was sticking around. I like him.
He's fine. He wrote a bad comic, but his general work's fine. I'm never letting deviations go.
Which deviations did he? I can't remember.
He wrote the one which murdered all the season 3 cast and made Hot Rod really dumb.
Oh, that one I had fun with, but because it felt like it came off Usenet.
Yeah, well, I will agree with that. But he did write something for Galaxies, which was really good.
Yeah.
Well, his Galaxy, it's not out yet, is it?
Oh, I thought it was.
No,
he's doing Magnus. He's doing Magnus. Yes.
Oh, Galaxies has been hitting it, so I
expect and it's ending, unfortunately, after Brandon's story, which I'm annoyed about.
Well, I guess, I'm not going to go on that tangent. If I think about it for 2 seconds, I actually think that does kind of make sense, but I hope it's something else is coming up in its place.
Yeah, I really like the idea of a Transformers anthology book. But, yeah, what did you think about the vocal effects? Because... I found it the first few minutes, it took me a long time to really understand what Bumblebee and Weejack were saying. After that, I was okay until Soundwave showed up and I had to put on the subtitles.
Oh, I didn't have any problems, but I mean, I had my speakers up pretty loud when I was watching it. I thought everyone had a specific effect. Even Marnoka had it. It's just harder to hear with the way he does his voice. You can hear the effect on Marnoka when he started speaking more quietly, because it would actually, I think it was creating a bit of a counterwave that made his voice sound a bit more high pitched at times when it got quieter. But it was a neat vocal effect in that it was very low mid bassy. Which is why, it's like I'll say it, like they didn't get the Soundwave effect, and it sounded like they were trying, and it sounded like they hit the wall that a lot of people hit when they try to make that effect. And the thing that was missing from Soundwave, oddly, was that entire low mid bass, I felt, and I was like, it's weird how everyone else has it, but Soundwave doesn't. But I could understand what Soundwave was saying, because they left enough of the voice actor in. Like, if I was going to say, like, audio post-production, I thought it was on the whole more or less fine. Like, nothing stuck out to me horrifically. A lot of the sound effects were good. They mixed in the old transforming noise in a way that really worked, which is difficult to do when you have a lot of modern-sounding sound effects. The vocal effect on everyone was a very kind of metallic, not really a flange, but flange-ish. I didn't mind it. But
once I got used to it, it was fine. It was just I wasn't expecting it to be as strong as it was.
Yeah.
So I think that's why my brain took a few minutes to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, I wish it wasn't on every character, because every character doesn't need it. But it was just kind of, I guess, the sound of the entire show is just, this is what they sound like. And it just, it did take me a little bit at the beginning, like with Wheeljack and Bumblebee, but I watched everything with subtitles pretty much, so I was able to know what they were saying.
I would say that a lot of the cast having very similar voice direction and sounding very alike, it was probably exacerbated by everyone also having the same vocal effect. I think that vocal effect would have been more effective if every voice was also a lot more unique in its delivery. I could see it being part of the problem for folks who myself included, who felt there was a lot of sameness in delivery. Like it could be a contributing factor, but in a world where everyone has a very, very unique voice and have like the thing that unifies it is that kind of post processing, I think it's a really cool concept. It gets into like that's how their vocal quote unquote chords work.
So I want to, we've been a bit on the negative side there. I want to talk about something I feel pretty positive about, even though I've seen a lot of criticism of it. The characters, I think the core concepts are in general fine and are generally fairly well executed. There's 2 or 3 I have some problems with, but overall I like the characters. And for me, apart from Jason, the standout character was Optimus. You used to say this about some of the stuff from Shinema, but it was a nice vertical slice of the IDW Phase 2 Prime.
Oh, yeah.
I like that they humanized. He's more human than he's been in years. He's flawed. He's vulnerable. He's making odd choices, but when you realize what situation he's in, he's going for anything he can find.
Right.
I like his relationship with Alita, whereby we don't have it blown in my face they're a couple, but it's so obvious. I was watching reviews by people who aren't Transformers fans, and like one just said, "Oh, they fucking." That's like a line from the review. Yeah, and it, he was constantly looking for her support. He felt she was undermining him, but he always came back and just like, I'm not holding any of this against you. You're not holding it against me. It never got in the way. It never felt like it was going to be, and they break up because she couldn't follow orders or something like that. And I like the direction he went. There's, like I said, there's some writing choices I think were not well made in the show. But overall, I think it was a really wise decision to humanize him, for want of a better term. I really wish they'd give him a few more contractions than they did, but he does use a few for the first time on donkeys. And I like the potential of his relationship with Bumblebee, I'll say.
I think it also really helped that his eyes were very animate. I noticed that really quickly in episode 1 that like a lot of eyes were, but his especially due to the faceplate, like there were expressions in his eyes, which
loads.
Like I've yelled about this a lot with Prime as well. Like it's one of my favorite things in animation, especially when you're going with CG, is that okay, then the eyes really got to come to life so it doesn't look like CG models flapping at each other. And I was really digging the eye emotivity on Prime. It helped him a lot. Like, because despite what you're describing, like under the voice direction he was given, without that additional emotional content in the way his eyes were animated, I think it would have fallen a lot more short.
Yeah, like I was constantly looking at his eyes, I found.
Well, and there were a lot of close-ups of his eyes as well.
Yeah, no, like they knew what they were doing there. And like I've seen a lot of people criticize him for not being, inverted commas, your daddy's Prime, and good.
Yeah, it's like
I
like with the Cullen Welker thing. I'm like, I got a problem with some of Prime's storyline, and that ain't it. That's the bit that would have made me have a lot more problems with his storyline.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the 2 bits where he loses his temper, where he just like they're talking about will we let Bumblebee leave alive, and he's just like, shut up, let him go.
He's like, we are not Decepticons.
Yeah, or when he like loses his temper at the Guardians, I think that was the idea of Optimus Prime like having a very human moment is so important for me as a someone who really I tend to lean towards the bad guys, but I genuinely really want to like Optimus Prime always, and it's so nice for me to be able to engage with him again, which I haven't been able to do since the IDW comics ended.
I think it really does say something that like we're so starved for Optimus to have those moments in moving media at this point that like this was, like, all due respect to everyone, this was kind of the bare minimum of Optimus having emotions. Is like he got mad. Like that's still it's like
he got mad and he had a couple of sarcastic lines. He got abusive. He started beating people. Oh, thank God.
He got angry about a thing and vocally expressed it, and then he used a contraction. And it's like these are the big qualities that we're like putting up on the platform.
Just start throwing awards at people, just like thank you.
Because I mean, it's true though. Because it's like it's not very common. Like part of what makes Cyberverse Optimus end up working is that the performance and some of the writing leaned into the stereotype he had become. Like the party episode on the ship, where he's like on the roof of the ship, just going like, I actually don't know how to function in a social environment. Like, I
really like that moment. Like, as a complete aside, just like Prime's approach was to show, he doesn't have fun. This one, he doesn't really know how to.
Yeah, it's like this caricature this character has been living across platforms since 2007. It's like, let's make an episode about how what if that was an actual person who's like. It's like everyone's having a party, and I only know how to be grim and give speeches, so I'm gonna leave.
I like looking at the stars.
It's like I've had to be so serious for so long.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's not meant to be a dig.
And then he makes himself dance because it's a commander, like because he feels like he has to get the party going again. He doesn't want to do it. I love that he didn't want to do it.
Yeah,
that was a sacrifice in his part.
Yeah, he did the noble sacrifice of the dad dance.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's not meant to be. I'm gonna say it again. It's not meant to be a dig. It's just like I think it also on a wider level is kind of telling that like that is one of the really impressive points of an Optimus performance in 2020.
Jeremy, what was your take on Prime?
I mean, I like a lot of the characterization, but as we got into the series, it just seems like he was making a lot of bad choices. I mean, like you said, you have to understand kind of this. He's out of options. He's kind of grasping at the only tangible idea he has. But, with Alita constantly saying, trying to give him counterpoints and stuff, it just seems like he is just kind of almost on a holy crusade, going for the Allspark. And I mean, they do address it at some point, because there was one point where he does kind of thank Alita for her kind of counterpoints. I can't remember. It was
she's basically laying into him, and he turns to walk away. You think he's about to go off and sulk, and he just pauses, head turns back, he says thank you, and he keeps on walking.
Right. So I mean, at least the show is kind of self-aware enough to mention that, but. They clearly know this is where they want their Optimus to go, but it seemed like he was constantly making, going down the wrong path. But like I said, it was more like a holy crusade where he's like, this is just where I have to go.
You can come with me or don't, but I'm going, kind of thing.
Right.
But no, it's just like Chris said. It's nice to have the bare minimum for once.
Yeah, I mean,
it seems mean to say it, but I mean it in a nice way. I really do.
The idea of the story that this Optimus went through, like, is one of my. It ends up being one of my critiques. Is like I like that this show began presenting the notion, and it presented enough of it that I'm kind of holding it to account for not following through enough. I feel that the war is the fault equally of Optimus and Megatron, and I feel like that was a message that this show was really heavily trying to lay down for a lot of the series. And I felt that at the very last minute they kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of chickened out from committing, and then went like, but what if throw the Allspark into the portal and let's get G1 going? And I was like, okay. Yeah. I hope that this is not the last. I hope that was not considered the resolution to this idea, because so much of the series, to me, paints Optimus and Megatron as being basically so tunnel visioned on each other that they're bringing the entire planet down because they can't see outside of that perspective. That like, I've got to beat the other one.
Yeah, I mean they want the same goal, just they have different methods of getting to that goal, and kind of different ideas of what that goal actually looks like in practice.
Yeah, it's like there was a number of times where I felt they really clearly show you like this body count doesn't occur to either of them until they're faced with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And in Megatron, it ends up like fitting, the character that you have in your head. But for Optimus, I felt like the show itself didn't seem as shocked as it should be. At some of those moments where, like, in Ratchet's clinic, it felt to me like that was a moment where Optimus was like, "Oh crap, yeah, I'm getting people killed." Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry. Anyway, I gotta go get my thing. And I was like, this should be a galvanizing moment for a lot more characters. And I felt that idea was the Impactor Ratchet story for the most part.
Yeah.
But then I felt Impactor and Ratchet's story got truncated, and I think it was a mistake to have it end with Impactor dying. I think that's a really rote way to do that story.
I have some. We'll touch on that later on, but some of the deaths here, I think, are problematic. But
well, yeah, the Impactor one it fits a definition of an archetype of a story.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
I felt
the redeemed individual who sacrifices himself for his savior.
Yeah, I just felt that it ended up also
nuking that potential.
Yeah, it put a
from orbit.
Yeah, it put a hot wax cap on that bottle, and it's like, yeah, but I barely got you barely even poured anything out of that bottle.
Would you say put a hot wax cap on that toy? Perhaps might be a better way of putting it.
A little bit. I mean, you know what though? Impactor's a very good deluxe, and everyone should own one.
Yes, I will probably try to pick up the IDW head one in a sale or something at some point.
Yeah, did we see a body? Like, is he confirmed dead?
Oh yeah, we had like light leaving the eyes.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
they did the computer power down noise. He's not Cog. He's not Cog.
No, Cog, who I was sure was dead until he just wanders out later on.
It was just a flesh wound.
Yeah. I have, when we get to Cog, I have a lot to say about Cog that is positive. I'll say.
Yeah.
That's my spoiler for that.
But you mentioned it there, and I think it's a good point. The story, like there's truncation in the narration, I think is something this story has a problem with. You mentioned Impactor and Ratchet. I would say Impactor and Mirage as well.
Oh yeah.
I feel like there's about 20 scenes missing between those two. Bumblebee, I think, unfortunately got his arc truncated.
Yeah, I think he got
turned into a MacGuffin.
He started so interesting, and I could not disagree when it was presented to me that he then got a program shot into his brain that turned him into generic Bumblebee, and I was like, yeah, you're right.
I liked his dynamic with Optimus, and I wanted to see that develop. But one, like, the kind of biggest example of truncation, or like maybe I feel like someone took bits out of the script and never replaced them, was Yallspark. Because episode 2 ends with Alita, in one of her challenges to Optimus, talking about why are we chasing down something we don't even know exists. Optimus tells her to believe in him. She doesn't. And she doesn't believe... Like, no one except Optimus, Megatron, and Shockwave really think this thing is out there. Episode 3, everyone's convinced Yallspark is real and they're all looking for it.
I think
There's a fundamental step missing from that narrative.
Yeah.
I need to check this still, but someone told me if you look at the writing credits, the first 3 episodes were Machinima, or not, sorry, it was Rooster Teeth writers. And the last 3 episodes were written by some of the more nameable pros who came onto the show. And I think that if there was a moment of other writers taking part when 2 or 3 episodes had already been scripted, that would account for some of those weird little shifts. But I did not go to check that yet. I forgot to before we did this.
No, I say that, but I think the overall narrative is well structured for what it is. I mean, considering the story takes place over a couple of days, a couple of hours. I think the actual structure of the narrative is good. It's got your act structure. It's got your character beats worked in. It's got your beginning, middle, end. It's got a drive where I feel like from point A to point B, it's going there. But it's those elements combined with some of the pacing issues that occasionally made me like step back from the story a bit. And I will say, like, I while the story is very generic for Transformers, let's be honest, I think it's not a bad execution of that generic story. I think it's a perfectly competent approach to it. It's not innovative, it's not particularly original, but if you're looking at this as just a viewer of television, this is a perfectly serviceable approach to telling this story.
Yeah, I think that also matches up with myself and to a harder degree some other folks I know who didn't like come off of this negatively, still came off of it like, I got lots of critiques, but also I ended it and I was like, yeah, it was fine, I'd watch another one. It is very baseline Transformers. Like, that's kind of the core of why I would put it at the Galaxy Force tier. It is pretty
They didn't
to
screw
look
it
at.
up.
Yeah. It's pretty to look at. It's got the bullet points of the story are completely on, in line with, what Transformer stories tend to be. That also is what keeps it at that mid-tier. And like Galaxy Force, it has some stuff you could dig into that could completely bounce someone off of it if it hits their wavelengths and it's like, this is actually a counterwave. There's plenty in the show, like with Galaxy Force, that like, if you watch this and you were just like, I hated it, I'd be like, no, that's valid. The show seems very unaware of the 2010s, is the way I capsuled it. If this had come out in 2010, I think we'd have hailed it as the Second Coming, full stop.
2010 specifically, I think, because at the end of 2010 we got Prime, and
yeah,
that's whether you love Prime or loathe it, and some people do and some people don't. I think it really did sort of set a standard for that kind of progression and for want of a better term, mature writing.
But also with stuff like the voice direction and some of the themes, like this is a very dour, grim, slow show. There's a lot of scenes of people talking about a thing, and then the next scene is the people they were talking about the next thing, and the voice direction exacerbates this colossally to the point where I feel this could have been 4 episodes, and
I think
still had all the same content. I think
this should have just been without not really a hit on the series, but I think it would have benefited from just being a movie.
It kind of already is. Like, when I realized the runtime is about 2 hours, I was like,
I think
without that voice direction, this would have been 90 minutes. So,
I think an hour and a half movie, I think the pacing would have been much tighter.
Yeah, although it is, for whatever pacing issues it has, you do have enough time for some of the major characters to actually breathe and develop over the course of the 6 episodes. So, whereas like Cyberverse with the 11-minute format, I think this one it was nice to get like regular sized episodes, and then really it is just one long thing, just split up so the arcs can be longer and like I said, it can just breathe, and I enjoyed that.
I would also say that, like, for folks who are not sure if they really want to check it out or not, like, if you don't get Netflix for this show, but if you have Netflix,
Dragon Prince.
There's lots of reasons. I like nailed it is the big reason to get Netflix, but I would say, like, it's not, like I've said this about Cyberverse as well. It's not a big expenditure of your time really to watch. It's about the expenditure of a movie, much like a season of Cyberverse is the like. I think a season of Cyberverse is a bit longer than this, But,
Seabird is 260 minutes, thereabouts, maybe a bit more.
Yeah, so like Season of Cyberverse is about 3 hours. This is about 2 hours. That still puts them at roughly the same watch time as if you were going to be a cool guy and hate watch a live-action Transformers movie. So, like, watch something better. That being Cyberverse. Watch Cyberverse. If you haven't watched Cyberverse yet, I'm holding you to account, by the way.
Oh, don't. I have had so many conversations of people just like, I don't know, just like, watch it!
If you watched this, then watch Cyberverse is the next one, I would say.
Make it through season 1, and then it gets really good.
Oh, it gets so good.
I do feel that Cyberverse ended up being we'll see once this thing is in all of its seasons, but I feel I would put Cyberverse on a tier above this as far as delivering some punch.
I mean, I would put it a couple of tiers above it, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. But
you weren't really expecting it from Cyberverse.
Yeah, no, Cyberverse caught me completely off guard. Once Cyberverse got its legs under it, I was like, "Oh, sugar! They don't give two flying fecks in this one, do they?"
I also think Cyberverse possibly had more of a budget behind it than this.
That's something I like. That's something I find interesting because, Jeremy, is there anything on the plot you want to say, Jeremy, before? Because this leads.
There's lots more on the plot we can do too. I don't want to shift it.
I'm fine. I mean, I think we've covered.
Because I realize I don't want this to come across as super negative because I think we're all on the this is a watchable show you won't regret it kind of phase. I think to lesser or greater degrees, but I've spent most of the week talking about and thinking about sort of the stuff I can talk about spoiler free, which is some of the more negative stuff. But this leads on to the animation. This is the best looking thing Polygon Pictures have done since Prime.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen a lot of what they've done, but
their work has tanked, in my opinion. They have very good designs, bad animation, framey animation, no expressionless animation. It's got. I feel like after Prime there was some sort of shift in production, or something had to have changed.
The budget on Prime was also like
True to Sky.
Yeah, in per episode was enormous. I think a Prime episode might have been more money than this whole series still.
Oh, I genuinely, I absolutely. Even when you convert, but especially when you convert, which led to me not being crazy about some of the action stuff. But Polygon did a remarkable job with the visuals, considering I was not keen about the core idea of the visual, which was using the CAD models. And I think those CAD models are fighting them at stages in this thing, particularly the run side. I don't mind that people don't transform. It makes sense to me that you would transform if you want to go faster, but I'm not like, oh god, they didn't transform, it's not a show, which I have seen so much. But the run cycles were when I had to step back and say, they are taking CAD models of toys that were never meant to do this.
Yeah, because and they were trying not to cheat.
Yeah.
That was to the detriment in a lot of places.
Yeah,
there's a big moment that stuck out to me because I actually didn't mind any time that waists were crunching because I've seen that come up now.
No, I like that. That was just make them a bit more fluid. That's fine.
Everyone's so greebly too that it kind of covers it. But the one who I couldn't ignore was actually when Starscream does it in episode 5 or 6. He does a waist twist or a waist crunch, and it makes his cockpit suddenly look like gelatin the way that it bends. And I was like, okay, that's one where maybe you should I feel like maybe the waistcut rigging went through the cockpit in a way that maybe you shouldn't have, because that looks real funny. And I'm glad he only did that once because I couldn't not see that. But I think that visually I have a lot of compliments to give this on the grounds that I think that the budget was still not enormous for this show.
No, I don't think this is one of those shows Netflix just threw a wad of money at and said they didn't Dark Crystal this. They didn't say do what you want and whatever.
Netflix farts out a lot of things that people don't even know exist because Netflix doesn't promote a ton of them. But I think that this actually did some tricks Machinima tried to do, and I could have sworn, didn't Polygon have something to do with the Machinima series as well?
Polygon's last Transformers work, I believe, was the Go shorts. I'd have to, or was that Tatsunoko?
I thought that was Tatsunoko. I have a memory that a notable animation company apparently was lending a hand with the Prime Wars trilogy. It
might have been Polygon. Now you're saying it. There's They worked on Robots in Disguise. They worked on, according to that's God. No, I can't find. I'll do a little bit of digging. You talk.
The wiki has they worked on the new RID series, like Prime, the new RID series, and then this.
Yeah,
71 episodes of RID. Are you?
I actually think they did a good job with Rid. Rid carried itself actually quite similar to some of my compliments I have for this. I think that they covered for some stuff very well. Like those CAD models. I said this during the trailers. Also, I should have said this in the spoiler list section. The trailers did a disservice to the show colossally.
Oh yeah, I mean,
yes, absolutely. Those were terrible trailers.
They made the show look. Those trailers are why I was still in the back of my mind thinking this could be Prime Wars tier. Like. This could still be janky as hell. So some of the things the show has, and again, this is maybe damning with faint praise, I admit, but like, you can see that the show was storyboarded for one, in that shots are set up, like that. That's a very simple thing. Also, a big thing they did, and I think this is really critical because they were using these toy CAD models as a base. The lighting hid a ton of jank. I think there's good reason why the show is shrouded in darkness a lot of the time, and I think making the eyes glow and be emotive to counterpoint that covers this even more. Is that by shrouding stuff in darkness, the less you see, the more your brain fills in, which means the less janky toy CAD model you see.
I mean, just in 3D in general, that's why so many of the like CWDC shows, the action CGI stuff is all at night.
Yeah.
It's just so easy to hide stuff and not have to animate it.
It's very smart because I mean, especially if you then artistically use darkness, as a direction through processes like storyboarding. And I'm sure there were storyboards, but boy, did the Prime Wars trilogy not look like there were storyboards. It also, I also think it helped that like when people did transform, when people were going to transform off screen. In the Prime Wars trilogy, they would just start spinning the models around and switch them on a frame, is what it looked like. In this one, like they used the camera movements and sound post processing and specific timing of cuts to cover for off screen transformations way better. And I really liked some of the on screen transformations. In episode 1, when Megatron turns from tank back to robot, even though it is a toy CAD, I was impressed that they added a few flippity steps. For the sake of dynamicism, I think Hound does it at one point too in the series, where the torso segments a bit more than the toy would have, just for the sake of having some more parts move. And I like that extra little touch. But yeah, the delivery of this felt like there was a low budget to account for, and I think for the most part they accounted for it quite well. And then, to be honest, impressed me with the lip flaps seeming to be at least somewhat aware of the dialogue coming out of the lips that were flapping. The trailer made it look like it was going to be straight up like bop 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 lip flaps, and there were still a little bit of jank, and I still get the feeling that the animation may have been done before some of the voice recording, but it didn't feel like it in a bad way. I think a lot of Alita 1's dialogue felt like some of the parts of it that struck me a bit weaker were for the sake of accounting for existing footage and timing to it. But then when she had some close-up shots, her mouth was moving very much in time with her dialogue. Megatron's as well. Megatron's mouth even had this really cute little touch where he had a slightly crooked sneer a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Where one side of his upper lip would go up more than the other. And I know his lips are like a bit of a gag, but in the actual rendering of the series, I don't really care. Like I thought that they just it looks like he has full lips, but not like they're literally pasted on, and that.
No, I mean they're on the toy. They're not as prominent on the toy, but they are on the toy.
The brushed steel texture they did for his face, I think, helped blend them in more, and I also really liked it. Like he has this brushed steel texture on his whole body that looks amazing in the close-ups.
Yeah,
very good
to me at least. But the only thing that got kind of weak for me, animation wise, that felt like, oh right, this is still like 6-episode Netflix series. Some of the action sequences, when the camera was lingering a bit too long on some of the action, that's where you started to see some of those threads, I guess, some of the loose ends in the quilt. A lot of the better action sequences in this, I think, also came with a lot of camera cuts, because that means you don't have to create a Transformers Prime action sequence for this. Because some of those action sequences in Prime, to me, are pretty legendary for how intense they are.
They're those are things I would say, like, have them in an animation class about this is the choreography, weight, everything else. Like, this is how you do it. This is the tier you're aiming for.
Yeah.
Like, whether you hit it or not, that's up to you. But
and in this series, it as an example, like one way that this series I think covered for it well was like when a firefight would start. Most of the focus was close-ups of people either yelling from behind cover or getting shot. And that means that you don't have to figure out like an elaborate choreography for what's going on. I think it's also telling that like Jetfire, it's funny that he suddenly had like a lightsaber coming out of his wrist.
Yeah.
But also that was a very, I would say friendly piece of equipment to work with plot-wise and animation-wise, because you could do a lot of anime BS stuff of him just going like vroom, and then cut over to a guy who's got lines all over him, and then the guy explodes.
Yeah, easy to hide stuff there.
Yeah, and I want to stress when I say hide, I'm not like lazy animators, but like there are effective ways to hide stuff for the sake of storytelling and for the sake of accounting for not having the budget to go super elaborate. And I think this series, when it did it, I think that this show did it really well, and it stuck out to me a lot as like a quality I wanted to highlight.
What was your thoughts on the animation, Jeremy?
I mean, I agree with a lot of that. I think the lighting was one of the best things I thought that they did in the show. Like when you first went into the arc, and it just went from this dark Cybertron into this like bright golden, hallway. It was such a stark contrast. I think that was just in terms of like subtle storytelling. Yes, these are the good guys. They are on the side of the light because their whole environment is different. I had issues with the Guardians when Prime goes to talk to them. I didn't think that whole fog, cloud, mist effect worked as well as it was intended.
Unfortunately for me, it kind of killed a whole plot point, because I know that scene is staged, so you're supposed to be thinking one of the Guardians lingered a bit longer, and that's why Omega comes out of the ground. I thought that was a building.
Oh, I didn't even see him lingering until my second watch through.
I paused because I noticed that they held on that shot a bit longer, and I thought I saw something. And the scene when you see the multiple Guardians in the fog, I thought was fine. But Omega hidden in the fog, he was actually too hidden. I think.
Yeah.
It was hard to see him there.
Yeah. So him coming out of the floor was like, what would you want?
Just they're so big. Why don't you just have it like where you're seeing like from their knee down, and Optimus is basically talking to their lower legs. And
I would have just had a blue one step forward, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Or just use a face. I mean, again, it's just recoloring a model you're going to be using anyway.
Right.
Yeah. I don't mind the silhouettes in the fog, because I think it's a very strong silhouette to present, but I think the silhouette needs to be darker when you're going to go for that.
Yeah. I feel like that scene was probably one of the weakest areas in terms of animation.
I'd agree with that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to go on to something different.
I was just going to say, bouncing off of that, like, because of that scene, I was actually pretty happy when Omega did show up. Like, taking into account, Omega probably didn't exist from the waist down in terms of like CG models. I very much appreciated that, like, doing a video game boss fight version of him, basically. I thought that sequence was storyboarded and executed pretty darn well. And I think that having the huge space bridge light over him, and then using that light element, using like multiple render passes to have that create hard shadow everywhere, and then having Omega kind of just spinning around, like shooting stuff and swatting Seekers, made for a way better action sequence than I was anticipating, because I knew I'd seen from a trailer like Omega's hand in one of the trailers, so I was like, well, I'm sure he's in it. And then after the Guardian scene, I was kind of sitting there like, is it really just going to be his hand? Is it going to be like Machinima, where like we just see an arm because that's all they got? And some of the shots from, especially the up shots of him, where he, like it made him look enormous. I think plot wise, it was a little bit weak the way he showed up because it felt very kind of gimmicky, like it was kind of like a season finale gimmick kind of thing. But visually, I thought it was really strong, considering that it was highly limited what they were working with Omega Supreme, and also considering the way Astro Train appeared. And I don't know if anyone noticed, and I need to double check it. I'm pretty sure Astro Train, in fact, was not rigged with a skeleton, because I don't think he ever moved.
There's a scene from there's a distant scene where his legs are moving.
His legs were moving, because I thought when he was walking, I know there was a close up, and I could have sworn that it was like,
because they do the close up of the foot, and then they zoom up to him, and I think that's a great shot, by the way.
I thought that was just them like plunking the model down, basically.
but there's a pull away where you do see him walking.
Okay. Cause
it's just as Omega's doing like the sweeping shot to take out like a large amount of the crowd.
Okay, cause I thought I saw his head move, and I was like, maybe they just like put a skeleton in there, but I didn't know his legs were moving. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, I felt like Astro Train was a very last minute addition.
I definitely believe that.
I do appreciate that he towered over, like he was like a combiner size. Which
I like that new take on Astro Train as this juggernaut, like giant sized transformer. And
he's going to turn into a spaceship that more than one character is going to get into.
Yeah, I like that. I like that they have held on to that in the comics as well as in Cyberverse. That let's just normalize Astro Train be big, because I do also think it's more interesting. Because it also makes him. I mean, granted, this Astro Train literally said nothing. And
he walked into a shot and got shot.
Yeah, but for a second, I was like, oh, another big Astro Train that we could potentially hear from as like, what's it like being a big Transformer, compared to everyone else.
But boy, that leader figure is not accurate now.
Well, it is to Micromasters. Who weren't in the show.
Jeremy, you said you had something else.
Yeah, something else with the animation that I really liked was just the camera work. I felt like, like Chris was mentioning with the storyboarding and stuff, the camera work was planned out, and I feel like it was executed very well. You had like, zooming into scenes, or not, I don't know if it's zooming is the right term, but kind of, everything was framed very well, I feel, and it much more, not really cinematic, but much more of what I would expect from, a typical, like, real TV show, not the Prime Wars trilogy. It wasn't just kind of a cut to these characters, cut to these characters, cut to these characters. There was more of a planning on where the camera was going to look.
Yeah. I think that helped a lot with some of the more kind of dour dialogue sequences as well, because I agree with people who say there's a lot of the show that feels like people are just sort of sitting around talking about what's going to happen, and then it happens, and what's happening is talking about what's going to happen next. And I think that on a second viewing, that might stick out to me more. I've only done one viewing for this recording. I think that it helped cover for a lot of that in the first viewing, in that you have these expository long sequences, but at least the camera's moving. And that's one of the advantages, I think, that a computer animated show has over, or a lower budget computer animated show has over a lower budget hand-drawn animated show. Because this is, Netflix anime, so if I think about some other weekly anime series I've seen that are for kids, one way that you can have a dialogue scene happen and have it kind of extend out is having these sort of long push-in close-ups where you are just zooming in on an image as the character's listening, and then they react. In the case of this series, because it is CG, another way to cover for stuff as well, and is that you can have like a camera movement be the animation for the most part of an exchange, where they're still, their mouths are moving and they're gesturing a bit, but the camera is adding to that. This actually, the point you made, Jeremy, extends out of this series even. Like, there's live action shows where I'm like, if the camera was moving, this scene would be 100 times better, because the camera's just sitting here pointed at what's happening. And like, I feel like the camera is an object and it's a piece of equipment. It's not part of the production. So I'm big on camera moves in general. So yeah, I think that they helped out a ton with this show.
Yeah, no, I can't really add anything to that, but I think you both made very good points. But talk about the lighting and stuff actually got me thinking on another topic that's been going around, which is the tone of this, which has been the other big talking point, because either people love it or they hate it. I was listening to a podcast today, and for them, they don't see why anyone would want to watch something like this. Before I comment on the tone of myself, I'm finding that the reaction seems to be what people expect a Transformers show to be. And like a lot of people are talking about how there's nothing fun, there's no humor, blah, blah, blah. And I have to admit, my response to that was, it was very well documented this was going to be, inverted commas, mature, which means that this was going to be serious. And we all knew it was going to be serious, so I don't know why people are acting like this was supposed to be a Saturday morning cartoon. But it's a weird thing to me. It's a very strange thing to me. But I want to know what you guys thought of the overall tone. Because I, as someone who does like the wacky and the weird and everything else, I liked the heavy tone of this. I like when, especially animation, just says we're not going to blink, we're not going to throw in levity to lighten the mood or anything like this, where this is supposed to be a desperate situation, we're going to treat it as such. Now, I did laugh in a few places, like I said earlier on, but that was entirely inappropriate. Like when Jetfire is coming up to Alita and he's like, "Don't worry, you won't fight alone." And I'm like, I just started bellowing out laughter because in my head she'd suddenly gone, oh, Jetfire, give me the button. Bang. Oh, he's dead now.
Well, no, Prowl got rid of it because Prowl turned out to be a good cop.
We never see him get rid of it.
Yeah.
He got told, he said, it doesn't feel right, I'm holding this, but for the mission you will.
It was one of those off-screen it would have been very expensive.
I just love the idea of her going like, aw, bing, problem solved.
It would have been hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, or perhaps even tens of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
There were a few jokes throughout, like the whole, like, Optimus was, well, we talked about it earlier, where he was like, am I that obvious? I mean,
yeah.
But it was humor like that. It wasn't anything wacky, or it was...
There wasn't a pause to say, like, we have told a joke.
Right.
As much as I love him, there was no knockout in this.
Yeah.
Where a character comes on screen and you just bask in the humor.
Yeah, but when you are told the series is going to be taking place over the final days or hours of the war, you're not expecting levity. I don't know why people would. If you want levity, go watch Cyberverse.
I think for me, it's because I do think that the show could have done with more tonal variance, especially based on, to me, the fact that episode 5 is that tonal variance, and it's a shame that it was for only episode 5. Because I think that when I say the show seems a little unaware of the 2010s, and it feels a little bit... Like, to me, this show is the last hurrah of the generation for whom Transformers was on TV when they were 10, and then they kind of fell off of it when they were teenagers. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, that's what the show feels like to me. I think the show from the ground up was structured to be something where someone looks at it and goes like, I remember that old cartoon, and then thinks, this is mind-blowing. The dude said ass, this feels like what happened off screen before that cartoon. And I think that was the whole motivation of the production. And to me, the way that feels like it missed the last decade is that that's not all of Transformers anymore. And certainly it doesn't have to encompass all of Transformers, but I think that's why, to me, it's highly valid that like an entire podcast group of fans could watch this and go like, that felt like just a dour waste of my time. I would immediately say like, yeah, but didn't you see Sound Blaster? But I think that levity doesn't necessarily have to be silly, and I feel that for sci-fi stuff like this, to have the Sound Blaster episode is what I'm going to call it. To me, that kind of thing is the precise thing that I would have liked to see throughout this. Still, not even in the form of levity, but just in the form of varied caricature and world building. I feel like there was a world building potential that got kind of lost on this show. And to me, it's literally the world building potential that exists in IDW2 right now that's been, for me, very strong. And yeah, like moments of levity are not really what I'm looking for, but what I feel would satisfy a lot of the folks who found the tone off-putting would have been even just a lot of the characters not sounding angry and tired all the time, which to me also ended up being just a negative aspect of the voice direction in general, in that it contributes to a monotone that can become overpowering on this, in the delivery of the series. So I think tonally, the way I would put it is I found tonally it was very cute, because it tonally felt to me like me at age 18. In some of it felt very like this is like me playing with toys, but then going like, but what if these toys had lives? Toy
Story.
Well, it's there's something very very adolescent about some of the serious delivery. And adolescent's not the right word, but like this, the way I always keep coming back to the point, it feels like the series was made imagining that there haven't really been any Transformers media since 2010. I think
it was a Do You Remember show.
Yeah, and I think everyone hired to work on the show of note was hired under the pretense that they are folks who remember liking Transformers a ton and haven't kept up with it. I think that from top to bottom, especially all the legacy folks from the Machinima series, both series I think were made under the exact same pretense. This one was made much better, but that is also a factor that keeps it like ceilinged at that Galaxy Force tier for me, in that it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do enough, I should say, adventurous with the material. It more so. It feels like the show thinks that there's nothing else to do with the material. And I feel that does end up holding it back somewhat. I want to know what this show would be like if every character voice was a lot more unique and standout. Not necessarily even... Like, it doesn't have to be silly. Just not everyone directed to sound old and tired and angry.
Yeah. It's an interesting point you make there when you say, like, it's the show made it kind of not really realizing the last decade happened in Transformers, because I was thinking before, like, it was bugging me a lot beforehand. It doesn't really... I'm feeling okay about it now. A lot of the dialogue reads like a late 90s or a mid 80s comic. Like, a classic example is, like, before he loses his hand, Starscream could say, "Don't cross me, Jetfire," blah blah blah. Instead, he goes on a very verbose short tirade that includes words like annihilation, and especially for a show like this, which I feel was trying to be more grounded and real, that is the grandiose language we all remember them using. If you look back in it, they frequently didn't. They talked like everyone else, and then they swapped in fake words so no one could say kill. But
they were trying to make it based off of the Transformers they remembered.
Yeah, exactly.
The Transformers that there were.
That kind of dialogue always strikes me, and I think combined with the voice directions issues, it made some otherwise good moments weaker, because I don't need it's kind of the Simon Furman thing. Whoever gave him that thesaurus they have a lot to answer for. So I by not recognizing are not having the perspective, rather, maybe it might be a better way of putting it, that Transformers has been evolving constantly, really since animated. That this show, in combining with my not very well hidden exhaustion on G1 at the moment, it did work in the show's detriment, because there are moments here where the slow delivery of lines, the pacing, everything else, they hurt it, and then you add in that tone, and these kind of lines are made for a show where everyone's being very grandiose and very tonally dark and everything else, whereas more normal, naturalistic language, like, if you didn't want to stick in a lot of jokes, you could have stuck in some, like, sort of classic sci-fi wit. Many sci-fi shows, very serious sci-fi shows, they have witty characters. They have a witty character whose job is there to naturalistically communicate levity in a way that's not taking away from the show.
I do want to throw in also, I think that all this being said, there is absolutely reasons for this show to hit with you as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think this show is it's gonna work for some folks, and I think it's gonna bounce off some folks hard. And I think a lot of that comes down to this very tunnel vision tone that keeps it locked into one place for better and for worse. And I feel that with a bit more life injected into it, with in the voice direction, in having more stuff like Sound Blaster, and not just more, not like literally more crazy characters is not what I'm saying, but just more color in the world, more flavor in the world.
Yeah.
I feel it would still work for the folks that are kind of looking for that nostalgic hit, because it is clearly all being done under that tonal umbrella, and I think that umbrella has room for that stuff. You really only got to look at season 3 of G1 to see where a lot of that stuff has already been part of the nostalgia of the series. There's a lot of room, especially with a Merc faction, with clearly there being unalliance. Like
you got me remembering Rodimus. Well, you've got two options.
Yeah.
What was it? You can suffocate or starve or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's
Thank you,
what it was.
heroic leader of the Autobots.
It's such a good line. I just think there's still a lot of room for that kind of stuff, and that's why when I say like it comes off a little bit like 18-year-old to me, it's like having one idea and then like just that's the idea, and then not having this comes off like really heavier than I meant for it. The word I was going to use was the maturity, but I'm not sure. I think there's a better word for it. There's not.
I don't think it's a nuanced show.
Yeah, not feeling like there's enough awareness that there is room for more flavor than what is there. Like ends up. It means if you like the one flavor, then you're in. Like it's got that flavor for you. If it had other flavors, I think there would still be critique of the dour tone, but I think that it would come couched in, I liked it when we got away from that tone through X, Y, and Z. And for me, unfortunately, I just feel like the only time to say that is when we went to see Sound Blaster's warehouse.
Yeah.
I wish there was a lot more of that. That or Bumblebee was that flavor as well, sort of, briefly.
When he was allowed to be.
Yeah.
But at least the Alphatron Protocols was a short-term MacGuffin. And it went away.
Yes.
But also then when it went away, I was kind of like, but what was the point?
Yeah.
that plot point to me,
They found the Allspark.
that plot point bugged me a bit, because it felt.
I liked Alpha Trion, oddly enough. I quite liked him.
He was neat.
He seemed quite laid back. He seemed quite chill.
Well, he's dead. He doesn't have to care anymore.
I'm like, you're all fucked. I don't care.
I felt like that plot point. That was one of the big moments where I felt like there must have been some kind of writer changeover, or someone who didn't talk to someone else, because I felt that Ultra Magnus is kind of the linchpin to all of this, between the characters' motivations, the spoiler toy, and the Alphatron protocols and the virus. They form this underlying track of dissonance to me through the show that I think are, to me, sadly the weakest part of the show, containing lots of stuff I really enjoyed. I was like, this is kind of jumping to the spoiler box topic as well, but like, I was sitting there going, okay, why is Ultra Magnus the spoiler? Clearly something's gonna go down. Stuff did go down. When he takes them, to clearly not the Autobot base, I was like, all right, there must be something here that is going to be the linchpin as to what the hell all of this is about. It had me really locked in.
Why does that spoiler box not come with a small cloak?
Well, that spoiler box.
That's
for
what the
everyone who
Play-Doh is
doesn't know,
for, I guess.
Yeah, the spoiler box comes with an Ultra Magnus who is, one could start to argue, is a partly dead Ultra Magnus, but I think that's really reaching for it.
Yeah.
It's Ultra Magnus, mostly in dark gray plastic, with his notable colors added on as paint apps. So he's a lot darker looking. He comes with black Play-Doh with Energon cubes in it, and he comes with a translucent magenta rung.
Yeah.
So when he dies, I'm like, okay, so are they going to go with he's a suit, or are they what's going to happen here? When his eyes light up green, I'm like, oh, it's rung, but then it isn't. It's some other Alpha Trion thing. When Optimus tells Bumblebee, you're going to have to speak to my mentor, I'm like, oh, it must be rung in the room that they appear to be walking to in the Ark, but it isn't. It's in his brain. When Shockwave deletes the Alpha Trion protocols halfways off screen. I was like, I guess they're going to remanifest in Rung, but they don't. They're just gone. So
You were basically going like, I'm expecting Rung. No Rung.
well, that was like one part of it. The other part is for all the effort put into the Alpha Trion protocols, I felt that was a ton of effort and time spent for what was basically a way to explain how they figure out where the Allspark is.
Yeah.
So basically, it was a map. It
It
could have
was-
just been a map.
It was effectively wasted at the end.
Yeah, it was the virus plot point also really bugged me because this virus took out the entire Autobot communication network, and it had been sitting in a box that Shockwave forgot about because he didn't know what to do with it because he thought there was nothing to use it on. And it seems
I
to
did
me
like
as a stretch.
Soundwave's, like, I'm not going to defend it because it also like took out the entire Autobot communication network. Next episode they're talking, but I like Soundwave's response that if we take this out, we're as bad off as everyone else.
They just didn't seem like they were as bad off as everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, the implication was it would destroy infrastructure that they were also using, but we don't really see the implications or the
No.
effects of
And
that.
Well, again, like, time is time. You have to
Yeah.
admit.
To be fair, they were all communicating because they all have a comm unit stuck in their head, except for Impactor.
Which
Which he should never taken out because it allowed Skywarp and Jetfire to find him.
right, but that proves you can take it out. So why didn't they take it out of Ultra Magnus when they captured him?
Well, there are many questions about
Think about
Magnus.
that.
Magnus's life choices.
Well, I think
Who
it's
taught?
implied.
Were we supposed to not believe that was him at the end of episode 1?
I think that the idea was like if this was going to be once a week, that like that would be the cliffhanger. But it was a very Netflixy cliffhanger.
Yeah, but it wasn't just a Netflixy cliffhanger. Just like he's wearing a sheet over his head.
I mean, I
It's
wish.
Ultra Magnus wearing a sheet.
Yeah, I wish we had seen maybe a couple, recolors of Ultra Magnus, even just like corpses somewhere. So
Or
be like,
yeah,
okay, this is a common
yeah.
body type.
Or in the Diaclone colors or something
Yeah,
like that.
just-
Or if he'd covered up his whole body.
I thought it was an okay
Yeah.
disguise until he did the close up on his head, and then it was like, oh, the hood is like actually like forming around his ears.
Yeah, but it was the shoulders that were for me. I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Who
Ultra
else has
Magnus'
shoulders like that?
Who else?
there's
Megatron's like,
others.
who are you?
Especially
Don't you
when,
beg.
Yes.
yeah, especially when it's clear that Megatron and Magnus have a history together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's the one guy on the planet with tall shoulders and big ears who has the silhouette? Who can feel your
Magnus's failed clone.
I was so serious. Here's the little tail end on this one. Because there is a second leader class spoiler box coming, I was so certain. I was like, okay, the CAD model exists, so what you're going to do is strip his armor off and then put the virus in him, build him new armor, and he's Nemesis Galaxy Prime. And he's going to go and hand deliver the virus with his laser cannons to whatever. So now I don't know what the second spoiler box is, unless it's just Astro Train.
I think, and I genuinely think this, I think Earthrise is a lot further ahead than we think. Partly because the second spoiler box, partly because the alternate universe Optimus Prime, who was advertised as having a key role in the Netflix story, isn't in it.
Wait, he was advertised as having anything to do with the Netflix story?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
That's why he's called alternate universe Optimus Prime, apparently.
I thought they just meant that the 86 movies, that alternate universe.
Nope.
Well, I mean,
That's
that's the other part of the marketing.
Yeah, but he was supposed to show up in, like, original solicit before we got the bio, which is like, he's dead. He's fucking dead. Deal with it. He's dead. But the bio was that this was an Optimus from another universe and it would tie into the show.
I did not know about the show tie-in part. That's fascinating.
So I suspect Earthrise is going to have a dead Prime at one point or another. And I think Earthrise is going to show up sooner than we think. Because I think they're going to want to have Kingdom out closer to when the Kingdom line releases.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this has been kind of a failed exercise.
I still think that the first spoiler box was already planned before most of the show was planned.
I think whatever was going on, I think that was from an early. I think that was a Michael Bay moment.
I just want to know though, like even what the bullet point. I just want to know why you put Rung in there. Like, what was the bullet point? Why is there a magenta Rung?
Bumblebee starts talking about Primus at one point, and he starts going like, "We're all a fragment," and they never touch it again. But I suspect that's a leftover from when Rung might have had a bigger role.
Unless the spoiler box is for Earthrise as well, and like that was actually the spoiler. Like
Maybe. I kind of like TJ suggesting it was Nova Prime. I really wish it was Nova Prime. It's not going to be, but I'd like it to
that'd
be.
be cool. I think also what we're talking about is now becoming even more certain in my head that Earthrise is not going to have a lot of Earth in it.
I think Earthrise will have them scanning vehicle modes either from a distance or I think Earth will play a role in Kingdom more than it will in Earthrise.
I think we're going to see the Earthrise at the very end of that series.
And then they go back in time.
Oh, no, that's the late title card.
Yeah,
and they'll have you can have some little dots moving around as like cars and stuff, and then then they get sucked through a time portal. And
and the last thing they see is a gorilla.
Yeah, I mean the little bit at the end of episode 6 where they're detecting the other ship, that was supposed to be an end credit scene, but Netflix doesn't do end credit scenes.
Yeah.
No,
so you're supposed to believe at the end of the show that they died, and then you would get that little tag at the end.
Yeah.
That was another thing that I found.
I wanted that to be the space pirates from Prime. I won't lie.
I was going to say the Star Seekers was what I was assuming when I saw the distress signal. Because I was like, oh, we're going to do it. We're gonna 7 years later follow through on this.
Yar! I be a space lion with a parrot foot. My foot is a parrot. What can you say? Yar!
I found it a little confused. I caught on to what they meant and what the intent was. I felt the idea that the Autobots died when the space bridge closed was tremendously weird to present to me. Because the delivery of the scene looked like they went through the portal and that everyone knew it was a portal. So when Alita's like, I guess they're dead, and I was like, why do you think they're dead?
Maybe she's hoping they're dead.
I know.
They went through the thing. They did the thing it's supposed to do.
Just knowing Transformers, you're like, okay, the next thing is Earthrise. They're going to Earth.
Yeah, even in fiction, I found it was a really weird line to give her because I felt like maybe that scene was supposed to be delivered differently, or that I was supposed to take that scene as the space bridge like collapsed on them. But it wasn't. Yeah. That like if someone on the ground, if Red Alert had been like, oh no, the space bridge collapsed on them, like while they went through, like that would have
or it's unstable. It's unstable or something like that. But
yeah. By the way, not to like jump around even more, but like
jump around.
I really hope a lot of Earthrise is the Elita, Chromia, Red Alert, Jetfire, Omega Supreme crew.
I would like it, but I would not put your money on it.
I know. I'm expecting maybe one episode
because they don't have toys.
I'm expecting maybe one episode, but the models already exist. The more Siege characters that are in Earthrise, the more that or the less time they have to spend on creating.
The more money they can spend on the other part of Earthrise.
Yeah, like given how not even every Siege toy was in this show, I would not expect more than about 4 or 5 Earthrise toys to be in that show. Because I think again this is another point I have that to me tells me the budget was a lot tighter than it may have been presented as being. If they could have just had access to every single Siege CAD model, then I don't think every crowd shot would have been 3 or 4 models. I think it would have been a lot of upscaled Micromasters in different colors.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
So I think it's not even as simple as, well, the CAD models already exist. It's like, but they only had the budget to rig a handful of them.
Yeah, it wasn't the access to the models. It was like, how many different recolors can we get from a model? You're going to want the side swipes and the seekers, and where in fiction they've already had so many different recolors.
Yeah, because I just mean like if it were as simple as all they got to do is push a button to skeletonize a CAD model, those crowd shots would have been way more varied. Because there's like 2 whole waves of characters who don't appear in this whatsoever. So that, and also
again, you could put that down to production time maybe as well.
Yeah, just time and money. Like there was not time and money to rig all of them up. I think it's also telling that RC, for instance, kind of shows up out of the blue at the very end along with Astra Train. I got a feeling those two may have been late additions who perhaps were not going to be in the show until the last minute. I would bet you RC was going to be Chromia at some point. And then it was feasible for them to do her up like that. I felt that way about Moonracer until I took a closer look and realized she was a recolored Chromia, and that's a very specific difference from Moonracer.
Not even the head was changed. It was very surprising to me because Moonracer has a different head.
Well, I think that just means that was a Chromia recolor, and with Moonracer you can do that. And if I don't look at it, I'll just assume you modeled the slightly different Moonracer toy.
And she got killed, so it's fine.
Yeah, that was also a bummer because her voice actor I felt like actually was a real standout.
Ellie Main, her name was.
Yeah, and I looked. She's a podcast host, so she was actually an influencer.
Yeah.
She's an influencer poll, and I'm like, even the influencer polls were better in the show than Prime Wars because they ended up.
You weren't crazy about MatPat?
No, I wondered if maybe because she was an influencer poll, she didn't get voice directed as heavily. And I'm like, that also seemed to be for the better, because she didn't... In fact, all the female voice actors in that show came off stronger, I think in part because they weren't falling under the umbrella of sound old and tired like this. Like, it almost felt like the voice director didn't know if women could do that. So they all got to just speak naturally, and they came off way more alive than a lot of the voice cast. Oddly... Ironhide also came off a lot more alive, even though his voice was just, I love this guy's name, his voice just sounded like Kaiser Johnson with a vocal effect on him.
He was a dude.
He was just a dude, but...
Yeah, the voice did not scream Ironhide to me, though.
It didn't at all. Like, as far as an Ironhide voice, it was really young and very generic, but because it wasn't going for what a lot of the other voices were going for, it stuck out as being a little bit more lively to me. But yeah, I'm really hoping with Earthrise we get to spend... I hope Earthrise means spending more time with some characters rather than pushing the same characters through more plot, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But we got to see what Earthrise is. Like, is Earthrise going to be... I feel like it might be Quintesson focused. Like, that might...
I don't know.
That might be the red herring. Like, that's the ship that's approaching him. But
maybe would be the thing I'd say. But speaking of characters, there's plenty we haven't talked about.
Hell yeah.
Plenty we haven't talked about.
Ironhide.
Ironhide. With accurate exploding midsection action. Get into it with the characters. Who did you love? Who did you hate? Kind of thing. I want to talk... you can have Cog in a second.
Okay.
I want to talk about Magnus, because Magnus was unintentionally funny. But I like the core concept of Magnus. I liked Bosco's performance overall. Again, he had direction problems everyone else had, but I like the idea that the Optimus' closest friend, the military commander, feels like he's seeing the wood for the trees and tries to do something about it. Especially now when we have the idea that Megatron had the treaty, which I really think we should have found out what was in that treaty.
It was super weird to drop that plot point after one episode.
Because I think they needed to dig into why the Autobots were so bad, or the people who became the Autobots were so bad. But Magnus goes to push it because it's still on the table. Like, it's on the table so much there are like surrender boots that if you want to surrender, go there. And maybe we won't murder you.
I wish we had seen one of those surrender stations.
Yeah. I would have liked to seen a little queue of Autobots just like going in.
Yeah, they go in and there's like a white flash and then a little wisp of smoke and then another one goes in.
Hang on, this is just the suicide boots from Futurama.
That was the way that they were described and the way that they were in the propaganda announcements made me think, like, are these just suicide boots? Like, do you go in a surrender booth and just get shot and put in a dumpster, and then they're like, all right, next? Yeah, no, he's fine.
There's a trap door. You walk in, and it just opens up, and you fall into a pit.
And it's just turn at the bottom of it. By the way, missed opportunity to stick Taryn in. But I like the core concept of Magnus a lot, and I like how he died. I think that was a very... more from Megatron's side of things, but I liked how they performed the death scene, and I like they never really made it seem like Megatron felt it, like he enjoyed it.
Yeah, they hinted.
It was a moment.
They hinted at something with Megatron that, again, I wish they had really gone a little deeper into. But if you start filling in gaps yourself, you get the impression when he pointed the fusion cannon at Shockwave earlier that he might not have actually ever really just straight up murdered someone with that thing until Magnus, and that might have been like his point of no return.
He's killed in
cleared up more, but
yeah, I got the impression he's killed in a fight, but he's never killed just like
Cold
pin
blood.
you to the floor. Bye bye.
yeah, like he has
that, you know,
like it also is telling he has paintings up of himself doing
Yeah.
the heroic nonsense pose with a cape on, and I'm like, this to me speaks of a guy who has not fully bloodied his hands like himself. He's told other people to do it, and I think the implication was that Magnus was a big turning point for him. I like I said, I wish it was more fleshed out in its statement, but that was the impression I got.
Yeah, no. So I apart from the odd, ridiculous bit that has become the major meme of this, which is Magnus in a coat, but I did like him. I liked his performance and everything else. I liked Ratchet and Wheeljack, the core concept. I think Wheeljack was a better character. I liked the idea of Alita. I liked her core concept. I just wish she had something to do other than disagree with Prime, have nothing come of it.
Yeah,
she was a very good performance, but she's just sort of nagging him a lot, and I don't think that. I think that's not the intent of the character. And I think that when she has those more emotional moments, she's really good. It was just like, okay, give something that comes, like if we had a repercussion from her saying this to him, either because she convinces him to make the wrong decision, or he actively makes the wrong decision in spite of her.
I felt like, again, the implication is he made the wrong decision in spite of her. With Alita, I was really worried. She was covered in death flags for the whole show to me. And I was really worried it was going to be like Alita dies for the sake of Optimus Prime's character plot, and that would have been a real bummer to watch in 2020.
Yeah.
I still felt that good work was done, at least like on the ground level. End of the day, she still came off very, for lack of a better term, like she was written by a bunch of dudes. But not like egregiously compared to some other, characters that have been written before. I wish that this is what I kind of wish, because I think that the actions of the plot match this for the most part. It felt like at the end, for me, she had to leave Optimus' side by the end. The entirety of their interactions are that the two of them in a non-war period get along very well, but that at this point Optimus is very far gone, and she can tell, and she is the one sticking by him, and that her positive character growth is to finally give up on him. He is not listening. He's obsessed, much like Megatron. He is obsessed. In a different way than Megatron, but at the end of the day, he and Megatron are obsessed with each other, and they are causing planet-wide loss of life.
They aren't seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah, and Alita and Impactor are the two who, through their own circumstances, could see the bigger picture. Impactor very ham-fistedly in some ways. Both of them had very good meat to their stories that I felt got a little bit squandered at the end. Impactor highly squandered in that he just dies at the end. Alita, she does take her leave, but it felt more couched in the idea of this has to work as a soft prequel to the G1 cartoon than that was her full character decision she was making. That's why I'm hoping there's more of her crew in Earthrise to flesh this out a little bit more. Because I feel the writing of the show, even as is, matches with an idea that she realizes Optimus is a lost cause. And I really hope that is, in fact, what we follow through with, because I felt like the show, at the very last second, muddled that message for no good reason. More so just for the reason of saying, remember how Alita was stationed on Cybertron? And, it felt like that was the reason. Because, she's very close. And her voice actor was trying really hard and was doing a very good performance that every time her performance faltered for me, it felt like a voice director was yelling stuff in an earpiece. Be it more emotion or slow down or something like that. And it felt like her performance was getting knocked off of a good wavelength constantly, with the core of it being very strong. I wish the show had, if the show was going to be 6 episodes, it's weird. The show was 6 episodes that felt like they could have been 4 episodes that were trying to do 12 episodes of content. And Elita was one of the victims of that, where I almost feel like maybe just leave out one of the major subplots so we can spend more time seeing why Elita and Optimus are so close, other than just telling me that they are.
Yeah, I mean, there was one quick little, like, her hand was on Prime's chest in a way that just a friend wouldn't do.
Oh, yeah, but
So,
that's what I mean.
yeah.
Like the
It's
show
just-
was telling me, like, visually, like, these two are together. And I'm like, okay, but tell me why. Like, they it's so strained at this point, this relation between the two of them. She clearly sees what is wrong with Optimus, and he's not listening. So the way to kind of build a chitin around that for me to, a superstructure around it is, like, give me 1 minute at least of them talking about the before times of like,
Yeah.
like what keeps them together? Why has she not yet abandoned him? And that would have, that plus her taking her leave at the end, not because someone has to stay on Cybertron, but because, like, she's just like, I think you've lost your mind, basically. Like, not literally like you're crazy, but like I think it would have been really strong if her last words to him were basically like, I wish that I could stay by your side, but you're lost. You've gone off the deep end. I think that you're not in your right mind anymore, and I'm not sticking through this. Because that would have been right, especially if the implication is that them going through the space bridge looked like they all died. Like, it felt to me like because of that consequence that I felt wasn't very clear, a statement beforehand of this is insane, flying through a space bridge with an entire shuttle. It's never been done before, or something like that. It's just, like, Alita is so close for me. Like I was expecting way worse. So it's again not meant to be damning with faint praise. It's just like there is good work being done, and I feel like they were steps away from doing really good work. But at least she didn't die for the sake of the plot, because I was so certain. I was so certain.
Well, and she also wasn't a damsel in distress.
No,
like,
never.
she held her own in every fight that she was in. And
there were constant moments too where they could have damseled her up after that initial scene. Like, I was expecting that too. First scene, she pops a guy's head. She's a badass, blows up bombs, and then by episode 3, she's kidnapped or something. And I was happy they did not do that.
But yeah, so I'll let you do most of the other characters, because I think you'll probably touch on all the ones we're touching on. The one weird thing for me, and I realized this today, I was feeling a real absence from the show, and it hit me like today or yesterday, which is like, I really missed Windblade in this.
Me too.
I was sitting there like, we've got these female, like, two things I wanted female Decepticons, we didn't get any, but I was at one point I just remember, like, something's missing from this, something I really feel should be part of this, and it was like yesterday or the day before or whatever, and I was just like, it's Windblade's not in this, that's the problem. For me, that's the problem.
Yeah,
and I was kind of surprised that caught me like that.
Let's be real, there's a lot of people who immediately are going to be like, yeah, good, but like,
yeah,
that's their problem, not mine.
Yeah, I think her role... Like,
I also want RC to be a bit more, like, transgender and nuts, but we're never going to get that again.
Yeah, I think Windblade's role also fills in a really nice gap in the classic Autobot lineup, in that she's an off-worlder for the most part.
She sees things from a different perspective than any of them ever has.
Yeah, and Chromia could have been that, because at one point she says Caminus, and I was like, oh, you know what that is, cool. But like,
when Velocitron was mentioned in an episode,
Velocitron as well, and the Velocitron was mentioned in a way that made it sound like Cyberverse canon could apply to it as well, like that it was there.
They just suddenly cut to Blur's corpse.
Yeah.
It was a strange thing to really realize. I felt the absence of a character like that.
I think it's partly because Windblade, I've said this before, like, Windblade's it's a stupid thing to say too, but like, if it has to be said, Windblade's existence has been justified multiple times over by this point as to, the character's contributions to a core cast. So when you have a very core cast centric show, I think it does stick out that she's missing. And I think Slipstream would have also been a super easy fit in for this show. In fact, I'm not going to say that. Everyone would have been a fit in. Like, friggin', I almost said strong arm. It's not strong arm. You know, from Rid.
Strong arm. Strong arm.
Cop cadet. Is it strong arm?
Strong arm. Yeah, it's strong arm.
Oh, hey, you want to know how my brain works? When I said strong arm, my brain heard long arm because I almost said strong arm prime. And I was like, I'm thinking of long arm prime. But yeah, strong arm. Strong arm would have been a perfect fit for this. Slipstream as well. Shadow. I mean, IDW 2 is basically doing it already. But, like, you know, Flame War Shadow Striker, characters like that. Like, granted, character models, so yeah. Oh, you know what? It's real cynical why there's no Windblade because there's no Siege Windblade toy.
I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but I think
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the characters we got that didn't have toys, it's pretty much just Alita and Bumblebee.
Well, and I guess for a half second, I think it is telling Alpha Trion only ever really moves one arm. And it's kind of just standing there otherwise.
Just waves once.
Because that's you know, that's all you got to do. Put a big glow on. Again, they hit it really well. He has a big glow on him, and he's a hologram, basically.
He's become that poor old Trion. That's his life. That's his life's role now.
Did you notice in that scene with Alpha Trion, there's like grass on the ground?
Yeah, that was interesting to me.
That's
I really
also
wish
why I think that
Bumblebee just turns around and says, "What the hell is this?"
The deleting of the Trion protocols, like cynically, I'm pretty sure that the reveal will be they're not deleted; they're still in his brain or something.
Yeah.
But to introduce such a weird enigma of a thing with so many weird nebulous stuff tied to it, and then to kind of like go like, oh, it got deleted though. Like, and that was it. Like, even the deletion scene, I'm like, this to me would warrant like cutting to inside Bumblebee's brain and seeing the whole thing like crumbling around him or something like that.
Yeah. At least they didn't, like, because I honestly thought he was going to like get brain shorted out. I know when he woke up, he couldn't speak.
Oh,
I've seen that as the
that.
other cynical thing. Yeah.
I was expecting that to happen. I genuinely was.
Yeah, I mean,
so I'm glad it didn't.
Yeah, I wish when he kind of passed out that we had seen inside of, you know, his brain like panic and stuff. But
yeah.
But I'm wondering if the grass is kind of gonna pay off in Earthrise or Kingdom.
Yeah, maybe he was just getting high.
Well, that would have been cybergrass. I mean, you're a biologist, you know this. It would have been CNA-laden blades, not DNA-laden.
Yeah, we're not going to talk to CNA talk.
It means cybernucleic acid, by the way, which is part of the science of Transformers, the real science.
Recently rewatched Prime Season 3. But yeah, so characters, guys, cut loose.
Jeremy, you go first, because I'm going to scream COG when I start.
Okay. Communications officer.
Wow. That's part of COG Squad. You can't take that off.
No, these characters we liked.
Characters you liked or didn't like who we like. I'm aware we're a bit like, for three people who opened up by saying like, oh, you should watch it. We've been kind of on the critical side of things, so say whatever you want to say, but if you can work someone positive in there, that would be very helpful to the tone.
I really liked Mirage. And I know the whole hologram gimmick was, not in G1, but I liked how they used it. With using it as the disguise, I love how when he saw the bodies on the spikes, that it kind of broke his concentration and it flickered.
Yeah.
I thought that was neat. And then I'm still not sure exactly how they work in combat, because it was like they broke apart with one hit, but they were able to fire weapons at other people. But
I took that as anime ninja tech, where anytime one of them shot something, it's because he very quickly had swapped places with it.
Yeah. But it was really neat. And I really I liked that. And I also liked, everyone that before the show was convinced that he was a Decepticon. I just love that he wasn't. Just to spite them.
It's also going like, hey, Siege Mirage was fine. We don't need to do another Siege Mirage. That was later waves. That was stronger paint damage stuff. I actually don't know if it was or not, but it is cute that was a red herring toy. Also, hey, Scrapface and Hotlink are two of my favorite characters.
Yeah, well, the Scrapface they didn't use that model or that color.
Yeah, I think Hotlink's in it somewhere.
There are two different Hotlinks, I believe. One of them gets plain beheaded.
Oh, yeah. TF Wiki, it's Hot Links. They've actually got it listed as hot links.
I have a 1,000-yard stare going on. I want to throw in support that I think it's I think it's a bit of a ridiculous thing to harp on about Mirage having hollow powers when one of his if you're gonna be real G1 about it, all right, let me be the scumbag. If you're gonna be real G1 about this, you're gonna tell me why does he have Hound's powers? Mirage had a holographic stealth box that came around him. What do you think that was? Do you think that was magic invisibility magic? No, it was holograms. Mirage also used holograms in G1. He used them to be invisible. So this is just an extension of that.
And what is a hologram if not a mirage?
Exactly. It is 100, as Jeremy just put it, it is 100% G1 canon that Mirage could do all the stuff he did. And honestly, y'all clearly are not real fans if you could not see that.
Yeah, I would also say that the relationship between Starscream and Jetfire, I like the way that they took it. You're not getting your classic, they were friends and, Jetfire was stuck in ice or whatever, but they have a relationship here, but it's just completely different, but it still works, and I thought that was really well done. And at one point, Megatron calls him a tool, and I thought that was funny.
I liked the ideas of what they did with Jetfire. It was a cool way to play off of the allegiance swapping gimmick being on the toy as well. I think that might be part of the reason why that they put him in that role, but it was an interesting take for him to be a basically Dinobot, very honor oriented badass with a sword. I wish his voice was different. I wish the voice direction was different. I mean, specifically.
I wish he'd been saying science words at some point in that voice.
Not even science words. Well, yeah, okay, that voice would have been pretty funny. But I wish that his
right before Alita blew his head off.
I wish his voice direction had not been sound a lot like a Starscream alike. Because it's with him and Impactor, it just made it so weird. Because even you mentioned earlier, like kind of goofy words like annihilation and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and I was kind of like, I had to really kind of bite my lip and go like, I'm going to think on a meta level about how some stuff might have been written by one person, some from another person. Because characters throwing down stuff like we're going to annihilate their species or whatever, or even let's go and wipe out. Let's leave none alive in this area is like I have a lot of trouble going from that to like, especially with Jetfire, where it's like, wait, genocide? And it's like, I think you used genocidal words at least once at some point, my man.
He's just like, whoa.
It's like
I was taking a bit far.
I thought we were all friends, just using friend words.
I was joshing, man. I was joshing.
Yeah, that was kind of odd, but yeah, I thought Jetfire was pretty solid. And again, I was also pretty sure especially when Impactor died, I was like, well, Jetfire is not an Earthrise toy, so I guess we're killing him too. So I was happy that he survived.
Hence Alita killing him. Like, I'm right. She murdered him.
Maybe off screen.
Yeah,
maybe off screen. I like the idea that they left him alive too, because I think that like one of those characters has to have more arc in Earthrise, so if Impactor's gone, it's got to be Jetfire.
Before you go off on your cog thing, since you're talking about it now, one weird character thing that I don't know what happened. Is Skywarp dead?
Yeah,
he is. That was one of the spoilers that PR told me not to talk about.
There was a moment where it's like Skywarp is shot. He lands. He's talking to Starscream, and Starscream comes back and says he's dead. And I was like, did Starscream murder Skywarp to prove a point?
No, I thought he died from Jetfire's injuries.
Because it's like the scene is he lands, says Jetfire's turned about him, and then they cut away.
So no, he I'm pretty sure I remember him on screen also going, ugh. And it comes off in a way where
he was smoking a lot.
Yeah, and given some of the other injuries in the show, I definitely would see it as very easy to take differently. I did until it was stated he was dead, and then I kind of kept watching, and I was like, well, he's not in any background shots. That weird black and red one is. So,
but yeah, I was like, did Starscream murder Skywarp to prove a point?
I don't
think he would.
I don't know if he killed him. I think
it was just when Jetfire, Jetfire got him, and he had just enough to get back to the Decepticon base to let them know, and then he died.
Yeah, I mean, if he was alive, then he could have led them to where the base was without them having to take the network offline. So that also
it made no sense that they tracked Impactor to the base.
No, because he left.
They weren't at the base when he took out his thing.
So that part
they were
confused
somewhere
me.
else. They were somewhere else.
That part confused me. I believe the intention was they were right outside the base, because I thought they were going to the space bridge or something. But
yeah, they were,
they
the impression is we're not going any further, and it was like they were at. I thought they were at.
Didn't
the
they
space
find
bridge.
the base because the virus destroyed the?
No, they found it
stuff?
beforehand.
No,
they found it beforehand.
In the end, they found it. They spotted it visually because the virus took the cloaking system down. But so here's the progression of events as I pieced it together. Is they didn't go straight to the space bridge. Ratchet and Impactor and the team first went to the Autobot headquarters to plan going to the space bridge. If you watch it again, I'm pretty sure the order of events are that's actually where they went next. So that's where he popped out his comm unit. And so from there, they then went to the space bridge, which does place his comm unit right outside the cloaking field area, which was always a little bit nebulous visually. So then with Skywarp dead and Jetfire defected, nobody knew where that area was. And then when the virus took down the Autobots' cloaking, they kind of knew, I think, the general area, given like the proximity of where Skywarp, expired. But then with the cloaking shield down due to the virus, they were then able to spot visually the Ark, because it turns out the Ark was not even under any cover. It was only under a big hollow umbrella. So that's how, to me, it all makes sense. Like, I spent a good minute kind of staring at things at one point, because I got kind of lost in a similar fashion. But I believe that was the intent.
Yeah. But anyway, you wanted to talk about someone, Chris.
So I stand the COG Squad. Communications officer is actually one of my favorites because he also confused me, because due to the lighting, I thought he was COG saying a plot point, and then the literally next scene, COG was saying, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "COG, you're the one who told them." And then I rewound. It's like, "Oh wait, no. It's just that because the lighting is dark. If I look, that's brown COG. That's poop COG, the communications officer." So
are they all named COG in your head?
In my head, they're the COG Squad because COG was the primogenitor, and the rest of them were built after COG. I think COG as an everyday COG as a working man. I really like that idea. There's a lot about it that really works for me, like down to his alt mode in this show just being the weapons pack. Also, COG really stand out. Like, that dude did question a lot. Like, COG was smart. COG was like, this actually seems like a really stupid idea. And then COG had his big badass moment, completely understated. I wish he had a line in episode 5 where COG is like, "We're gonna scan you for weapons." Like, alright, that's fine, I don't have any. You didn't scan to see if I was the weapon, dumbass!
I did laugh. When they scanned him, just like, but COG's there.
But that's the thing. Someone pointed that out to me, and I didn't want to reply because I didn't want to say too much on Twitter, since Twitter just shows your replies to people. But I think that the gag that totally works for me is that they were scanning, because it's a Merc outfit. They're scanning for handheld weapons, and at that moment, COG was not a handheld weapon. He has weapon components in him, but I bet a lot of Cybertronians do.
Right.
So COG though, like has a lot of lines. Most characterization COG has ever gotten in any media whatsoever.
I mean, we will admit that's a low bar.
Yeah, the bar is 0. So
I mean, I'm just going to look now. What has COG been in?
He's appeared in things, but as an actual character, I think in the 80s comic, he spoke. I think once.
The Decepticons are escaping Fortress Maximus. Let's finish them off. That was his line. He was in Legends. He was mentioned in Beast Wars Uprising, and this.
Yeah. So all of this, it's like the strongest COG performance that we've ever had, because there has not been one. Granted. But then also COG gets the badassest moment ever. Literally half his spark is blown out of his body, right? He has a hole bigger than his torso in his torso. And he's just like, give me a pain pill, doc. Ooh, hurts a bit. I thought that was a statement on the durability of Cybertronians in this. But then a lot of other people die. Ultra Magnus dies from a shot through the exact same spot on his torso that does less damage than what Cog took. Moonracer dies by having 2 of her arms removed. Skywarp dies...
Moonracer had the, what was her name?
The Maxima.
Maxima. She had the Maxima death.
Yeah, her arm came off, and it turns out that makes her entire core physicality disintegrate.
She's just sitting there in the middle of the sea of wrestling like, no one picked me up.
Skywarp took a kidney shot. Like a lot of characters took shots and then died. Cog had part of his torso gone.
The body type that Cog and the Cog Squad have is just more resilient, I think.
I think Cog is also just I want them to lean into this more. Like, Cog is in fact just the most powerful transformer on Cybertron. like he might not be the strongest, he might not be the biggest or the smartest, but like Cog is also immortal. So, you can blow Cog to pieces, and I guess they'll just grow back, because that's what it looked like, is that he just grew back. That chunk of his midsection.
They didn't even have patches or anything.
No, just give him a pain pill. He just needs an aspirin. He needs a Tylenol, sorry, not an aspirin. And he's like, get me some acetaminophen on an IV unit and give me an evening. Put me in that on a couch. I'll be fine in the morning. And then he was. I just want more. I want Cog to Big Dog on Ultra Magnus dying too. He's like, what a wuss. Just I've had a bigger hole than that in my stomach twice. This ain't even my spark anymore. I've regrown so much of my spark. It's like my 12th spark. I really liked Cog. I liked Cog, and I liked that Cog was not there to die. Granted, the Cog Squad were, but so were a lot of other troop builders. I love that Cog survived. I really want Cog to be there in Earthrise. I want Cog to join the Evergreen cast as a result of this. That would make me really happy. So, I really like Cog. I mean, Cog... I like him for silly reasons, but I felt, again, going back to that topic, Cog to me was kind of silly and kind of characterful and a little bit of levity, but in a way that also is not, straight up, the opposite end of the gradient from dour end of the Civil War time period stuff. He's a ludicrously resilient soldier character who turns into a weapons backpack for RC, which is a partnership I never thought I wanted. But as a result of Episode 5, I now want Siege, Sound Blaster, and Earthrise RC. Because I gotta know if Earthrise RC can actually handle the Cog backpack.
You just take off her backpack and you put on Cog.
As long as the mounting point is there, right?
Yeah.
But I have a lot of... Cog and Sound Blaster were 2 of my absolute favorite things from this whole show. They are the things that I think are going to stick with me for a while as, when people remember... I think in time people will think of this show and will think more about the kind of slow pace and the dour tone, and those are going to be the things that I'm going to remember, is, we had Cog and Sound Blaster get their first and best characterizations ever, amidst a kind of slow-paced and more dour tone. More of them, please. More of them. And also throw in some more Alita, too. Chromie is fine, Red Alert's fine, but yeah. I think I'll cap my Cog Squad love there and just say that I would buy the 5-pack if they put it out.
Well, I've covered most of my points. Are there anything either of ye want to touch upon?
Just looking at the cast list.
I will say that some of my friends were suggesting this earlier today. Watch it with Japanese audio and English subtitles.
I've been meaning to do that.
It is great.
I heard that they, from what I saw, they actually hired a really solid, Seiyu cast for that one.
It's from what I understand, it is a lot of old Transformers alumni, but it's all top quality actors.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I really want to rewatch it in the Japanese voice track. And I feel so guilty because I feel like that's really kind of stepping on the foot of all the voice actors in the English one. I mean, it's like so yeah. We all kind of think the Japanese dub sounds a little bit stronger, what with them all being decades-long careered veteran voice actors.
I just thought it was neat, and after watching so many G1 shows or the Headmasters and stuff like that, just it's kind of harkens back to that.
Yeah. As of this recording, I still haven't seen it. I just saw the Japanese trailer, and I thought it sounded really solid. And I just want to stress to anyone listening, like, please don't, if you come off the Japanese dub wanting to do it, not the dub, the Japanese voice track wanting to do it, please don't start going, like, I can't believe how much better the acting was. Because, like, I mean, the voice direction is to me, the problem with the English version, for one.
Yeah,
but
I suspect that they had a better voice director in the Japanese version.
But also,
probably.
like a majority of the actors in the Japanese version, I think, just have like numerically longer careers and experience behind them.
I was looking at it a while. Like, some of these guys are like 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the business.
Yeah, it's not.
So.
I mean, it's kind of a weird way to put this. I don't think it's very fair to the voice actors to say, oh, the Japanese voice acting is so much better. It's like it should be. If the career
I would be
differential's
worried if they got, like, the guy who's been doing Megatron since year dot over there, and he's not good at what he does.
Also, let's be real, though, because I'm guilty of this. I think a lot of English-speaking people think Japanese voice acting sounds better, in part because they don't speak Japanese.
I don't, but I have been listening long enough to know that at least frequently dubs have very poor voice acting.
Yeah,
I think dub voice acting tends to be lower quality than Western animation voice acting.
Yeah.
Which is a different thing altogether than saying Japanese voice actors are just better. They're different, but whenever something's brought over, like, something about the translation, the intonations are all wrong for our language, let alone someone else's.
Yeah, over time I've come that in like learning some of the language in school way back. Like I've come to be able to hear sometimes, like, just a weaker versus stronger performance.
I recently watched Gundam Seed Destiny, and it has one of the worst performances I've ever heard in an anime by a Japanese Japanese cast. It was atrocious. Whoever gave them voice direction was terrible.
I can't speak to Gundam because I'm legally not allowed to. But
I've only started. I can be fresh.
I sometimes feel like I want to say that, like, because I've done it, where it's like you hear this super awesome the Japanese voice track, and it's like, that sounds so much better and so much more intense, and it's like the energy is there, and I think the energy comes from a lot of culturally is not the right word at all, but just the way that voice performance is done in Japan, I think, has a different baseline energy altogether. Not a better one necessarily, just it is a different energy. But at a certain point, I do think that sometimes folks, because they don't know precisely what words are being said, will sometimes also come to that conclusion. Obviously, there are folks who also can just hear it, and so I'm not trying to denigrate that at all. But
of course.
I want to listen to that voice track, because this show with more varied and more more varied and less monotone direction would be fascinating to me, and I'm assuming that's going to be the case with that.
Yeah, I think that's what you get from it.
Yeah,
that'd be neat.
I gotta do that before we do the WTF.
Yeah, so that your show isn't just completely using my bullet points.
That's right. Although I have been writing quite a few to completely.
It's being recorded. You don't need to write anything.
No, I have to write it. That way I can mail it to myself, and then I can say, like, well, no, I actually invented all these talking points on my own.
To be fair, your show is going to be 90% Cog Squad.
I don't know how Aaron or TJ feel about this at all. I haven't actually looked.
Do you care?
Yeah, I mean, they're friends. But yeah, I got no expectations.
They're friends, but they're wrong.
There's a good chance that I'm going to be walking into a minefield of cog racism when I do mine, and I'm not sure yet. So,
cog racism, the great trouble of our time.
The great. It's not a trouble at all. I feel like I have to say that out loud.
You can't even pretend.
I'm just going over the cast list to try to think of any other small points that come to mind. One of them is I want to say that I am a Spinister truther. I think he's still alive. I've seen the talk that they think Spinister's dead because he got put on a spike. All I'm going to say is A, Cog, and B,
Impactor.
Well, also B, Impactor, and C. There is a Spinister in one of the scenes in episode 6 when Megatron is on the road in tank mode, and I looked at that Spinister really closely, and I'm pretty sure he is actual Spinister, not Spinister with a different color palette. He's just so shrouded in shadow, it's hard to tell. but I'm pretty sure that's Spinister. I am pretty sure Spinister is alive. Everyone who says Spinister is dead is spreading a hoax for their own personal gain and benefit, because they're haters and they don't like Spinister. So Spinister's alive. Spoilers.
Right.
One other thing. I thought it was funny that they actually did pop Cliffjumper in there, but he's just Bumblebee.
When I saw the original clip there, I thought that was something before I realized what they were doing. I thought it was like a color correction issue. Because he didn't really look red. I just thought the screen was, like, mildly reddish.
I think the idea was that the screen's interference would kind of cover the fact that it was just a red Bumblebee, but then it was too clear in a few shots. And I was like, oh, no, that's just red Bumblebee. That's fine. That actually is really funny given the IDW 2 version of Cliffjumper.
Right.
Jeremy, anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
One last thing, given how critical I was. Here's one thing I'm not critical on. I think people transformed just fine enough in this show.
Yes, same.
I've seen the critique from a lot of people that there's not enough transforming, and I really don't agree with it. I think there was plenty. There was never
There's not a lot of on-screen switching, but that's just budget.
Yeah, there's also there isn't like transformation in every episode every couple minutes, but I feel like in 2020 we gotta realize that doesn't make a good Transformers cartoon.
But no, you see, it's Transformers. It's in the name.
It is in the name. Don't start role-playing a devil's advocate at me. I can tell.
What about, this is how we end up with Action Master toys.
I can hear the lack of passion in your voice.
This is how we end up with those non-transforming figures.
I mean, my biggest complaint on the
statues, as Charles called them once, I believe.
Yeah.
He's going to pay for that one. He doesn't realize it, but he's going to... he's dug a pit for himself.
Yeah.
Mr. Donatreon.
Well, I think the biggest thing...
I've decided go ahead. I was just going to take the...
No, go ahead. Take a shot.
Instead of just sending him a dictionary definition of donator, I'm thinking about sending him dictionary definitions from different languages. So...
Okay. I welcome
this. You can get him to say it. This will make me sincere, so please get him to say it.
Remember when Jeremy was going to say something about Siege?
I was just going to say on the transformation stuff, I mean, my biggest complaint is there was a lot more walking than there needed to be. If they had just had the vehicle models driving more.
I felt like at least in a lot of those situations it was always, granted this is kind of weak, but it was always under the auspices of like a somewhat stealthy mission. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I guess you wouldn't want to run around. Like, what evened it out for me was I forgot the sequence, but there's a scene when Sideswipe they're like, Sideswipe, go after that guy, and Sideswipe just like turns around, kicks a wall open, and just turns into a car and goes, like tires screeching and everything. They do walk a lot. I feel like if a critique of the show is going to be they don't transform enough, then I'm like, I just don't feel that. Like, sure, we could have had a whole sequence of Omega Supreme transforming, I guess. I feel like there was plenty still.
Yeah.
I heard the noise a lot.
Yeah, and they used the correct noise, so...
Yeah, and because if you don't do a lot of post-processing on that noise, it often ends up sounding really like it's on another audio layer. And they didn't do a lot to it and made it work, and I was quietly quite impressed by that.
But in that case, guys, I'd say we wrap it up here. I won't ask for final thoughts because it's just going to be reiteration. So I will ask you people, what would you like to show? Because we are shameless pluggers. Jeremy.
Well, we have a lot of Siege stuff going on. We have an interview with FJ DeSanto. It's already up on our podcast feeds and on YouTube. We have an interview with Alex Bornstein, the composer of the series, that's going to be coming up. I'm not sure if it'll be before this episode is out or after, but soon. And we're going to be talking with Brandon Easton, so that'll be up. I'm not sure exactly when. We haven't done that one yet. But lots of Siege stuff coming up. We've got last week on Alt Mode, we did episodes 1 through 3, spoiler reviews, and then this next week we're going to do episodes 4 through 6. And yeah, it's just keeping us busy. But transmissionspodcast.com has all of that.
Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Vangelus Internet, and I have a
No, you're not.
podcast about Transformers as well. It's on WTF.tfw2005.com. It's called WTF at TFW. And then we're going to have a very, just get my notes open here, very original, fully 100% original podcast about the Siege Netflix show as well. Couple little hints for you out there before you check it out, because I know you all will, because it's original. There's going to be some stuff, about, I'm going to be talking about how the Megatron toy had those lips, so really it's they're just using the lips off the toy in the first place. I felt like Windblade was kind of missing from this show, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, you're very insightful about this, I must say.
And I have some problems with the tone, but also I like the tone a lot. There's something in here. What did he say about Jetfire? I thought it was a really cool take they did with Jetfire. How they did him not being not being friends with Starscream. So check out that podcast when it's up. Also,
100% original all the time.
that's right. It's probably going to be up on my YouTube channel as well. So I cross-post some of the podcasts there, along with videos about Transformers, if you like those sort of things, and other toy things. That's Vangelus Central, Vangelus Reviews on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter, twitter.com/Vangelus, and I am Vangelus Central on Facebook and Instagram. Those are all different places where you can come and hear my fully original Siege Netflix content that I made up by myself. That's I'm on. I've also got an interview coming up with Brandon Easton. No, I have an interview up with Brandon Easton. We're about to talk to transmissions.com, and Charles calls them statues. It's weird notes. Like, why did I write that down?
I don't know. I feel like you're having an out-of-body experience.
I'm not. These are all the original ideas I have.
Well, I look forward to hearing them. I look forward to hearing your fresh and interesting takes.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I have to get our stuff out of the way first.
Fresh and interesting
So,
takes.
there we go. Fresh is FPHRISH.
How do you spell P?
PEE.
That doesn't look like the word fresh.
No, it's trust me, it's relevant to our age group. So, guys, thank you all for listening. If you got any feedback to this, the email address is moonbase2@gmail.com. We always like some feedback. We got a bit during the week, but for this kind of show, I'm not going to stick it in. If you've any interest in following us on Patreon, you can do that over on the Moonbase 2 for $2 a month. You can get this. You can get the early releases of our comic book reviews and interviews, and of course you can get our monthly special show for the people who want to hear us talk about something like Transformers. Next up is a DS9 one, so I'm looking forward to that.
You can be like me. I support you guys.
Yeah, good man. He pays me.
Yeah.
I never get to see the money, by the way. I think Andy just sits in it like an egg.
He would.
He would. He won't spend it. It's just there.
How else are they going to fund doing the Blu-ray remasters of Deep Space Nine?
Yeah. Don't get him started on that. He's very serious about his things not being on Blu-ray. He's still not over Prime not being on Blu-ray over here. But yeah, guys, check it out. You know where to contact us. You know where to find us. Moonbase 2 forums and Facebook and everywhere else. So I won't bore you too much. Thank you all for listening. Thank you two lunatics for agreeing to this. It's always great to have a chat with you. And Chris.
It's always a pleasure
to
talk to you, Mikey.
There we go. And yeah, guys, we will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
You are now leaving